Chapter 702. Zhang Chunren sneered. Tianhua, for the sake of Yuan Weiqing becoming the one-armed saber king in the future, I think you should agree. Hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Yuan Weiqing hurriedly looked at Tianhua and asked loudly, Tianhua, do you agree? Hearing the two's question, Tianhua sighed. Yuan Weiqing, it's not that I don't want to agree, but I really don't have that many gold coins. If it's possible, I can only take out 100,000 gold coins at most. If it's more, I'm afraid I can't do anything. Hearing the number, Tianhua said, Yuan Weiqing's complexion immediately changed. But before he could say anything, Zhang Chunren loudly said, Tianhua, could it be that you think Yuan Weiqing can become the one-armed saber king by relying on these 100,000 gold coins? Hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Tianhua froze for a moment, then shook his head. I don't know, but I can only take out this much gold coins. If it's more, I can't do anything. Zhang Chunren sneered. Tianhua, do you know how much gold coins it costs to buy a kind of spiritual medicine? Speaking up to here, Zhang Chunren paused for a moment, but then he continued without waiting for Tianhua to answer. Tianhua, let me tell you, your 100,000 gold coins probably can't even buy a spiritual medicine. If you can't buy a spiritual medicine, then how do you expect Yuan Weiqing to become the second one-armed saber king? Tianhua smiled bitterly and shook his head. Zhang Chunren, I don't know. Speaking up to here, Tianhua paused for a moment, then continued. But there's one thing I want to make clear. The injury on Yuan Weiqing's arm has nothing to do with me. Although the injury on his arm was caused by me, it happened when I was unconscious and accidentally injured him. More importantly, at that time, Yuan Weiqing was sneak attacking me. I blocked it normally, which was why his arm was injured. This matter has nothing to do with me. The reason I took out 100,000 gold coins is because I can't bear to see Yuan Weiqing's miserable state. Out of sympathy, I took out these gold coins. But I want to make it clear in advance, even if I take out these gold coins, it's definitely not because of compensation, but because of sympathy. Speaking up to here, Tianhua paused for a moment, but then he didn't wait for Zhang Chunren to reply, and continued. As for whether or not Yuan Weiqing can become the second one-armed saber king, this actually has nothing to do with us. I'm only advising him out of sympathy. That's why I'm advising him. Do you understand? After hearing Tianhua's words, Zhang Chunren sneered and turned to look at Yuan Weiqing. Yuan Weiqing, did you hear that? Tianhua is lying to you. His real goal is for you to leave this place as soon as possible and stop bothering him. Do you understand? Speaking, of the Saber King of Ovs and of, said, I, saber, saber, you saber, this is Yuan Weiqing, I support you. Hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Yuan Weiqing suddenly turned to look at Tianhua and said loudly, Tianhua, I don't care what you say. You must agree to my conditions today. Otherwise, I won't let you go. Hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Tianhua shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, although I sympathize with you, this matter has nothing to do with me. The reason I took out 100,000 gold coins is only to help you. As for your other requests, please forgive me for not being able to agree. Hearing Tianhua's words, Zhang Chunren sneered. Tianhua, don't you want Yuan Weiqing to become the second one-armed saber king? Hearing Zhang Chunren's question, Tianhua blanked for a moment, then casually nodded. I do. I want to see Yuan Weiqing pull himself together and become the second one-armed saber king. Saying this, Tianhua paused for a moment before continuing, but my ability is only so great. I can only help Yuan Weiqing with 100,000 gold coins. I can't do anything more. Zhang Chunren shook his head. Tianhua, no matter what, Yuan Weiqing's arm was injured by you. Whether it was because he sneak attacked you or because of some other reason, you injured his arm. You won't deny this point, right? Tianhua nodded. I admit this point, but I still stand by what I said just now. This has nothing to do with me. I was passively counterattacking. I didn't take the initiative to sneak attack. The reason why Yuan Weiqing was injured was because he took the initiative to sneak attack me. Hearing Etienhua's answer, Zhang Chunren only coldly shook his head. Etienhua, I've already said that no matter what the reason was, Yuan Weiqing's arm was injured by you. Therefore, you must take responsibility. We can't let Yuan Weiqing continue to be dispirited. We must make him stand up again. Saying this, Zhang Chunren's tone paused for a moment, but then he didn't wait for Etienhua to reply and continued. Etienhua, I originally didn't want to mention the One-Armed Saber King because I know why the One-Armed Saber King was able to rise again and become a generation's expert. Because the One-Armed Saber King took a large amount of spiritual herbs, he was able to stand up again. I originally didn't want to talk about this matter, but you just had to bring it up. Since it's like this, then I think you should give a little more compensation so that Yuan Weiqing can stand up again and become the second One-Armed Saber King. Etienhua, what do you think? After hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Etienhua nodded. Of course, I hope that Yuan Weiqing can stand up again. However, if you want me to compensate a little more, I really can't promise you because I only have so many gold coins. If you agree, I can give you 100,000 gold coins with both hands. If you don't agree, then I really can't do anything about it. After hearing Etienhua's words, Yuan Weiqing suddenly became furious and shouted in a stern voice, Etienhua, could it be that you were lying to me just now? Etienhua shook his head. No, I really want to see you stand up again and become someone like the One-Armed Saber King. Yuan Weiqing shook his head and asked loudly, since you want me to become someone like the One-Armed Saber King, then why don't you support me? Etienhua was stunned for a moment. Then he shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, could it be that I gave you 100,000 gold coins? Isn't that enough to support you? Saying this, Etienhua's tone paused for a moment, but then he didn't wait for Yuan Weiqing to reply and continued. Yuan Weiqing, this 100,000 gold coins is all I have. Perhaps it can't buy many spiritual herbs, but I've already done my best to help you. Could it be that you're still not satisfied? After hearing Etienhua's words, Zhang Chunren sneered. Etienhua, don't talk nonsense. Let me calculate for you. If Yuan Weiqing wants to become someone like the One-Armed Saber King, how many gold coins would he need? Saying this, Zhang Chunren paused for a moment, but then he didn't wait for Etienhua to reply and only thought for a moment before continuing. Etienhua, if Yuan Weiqing wants to reach the level of the One-Armed Saber King, he would need to consume at least 10 different kinds of spiritual herbs. Even if each spiritual herb costs 100,000 gold coins, 10 different kinds of spiritual herbs would probably cost 2 million gold coins. If you want to practice martial arts well, you need to eat well and live comfortably. And to meet these two conditions, I'm afraid he would need several 100,000 gold coins. In addition to other expenses, 1 million gold coins should be enough. Saying this, Zhang Chunren paused for a moment before continuing. So, Etienhua, if you want to support Yuan Weiqing to become the second One-Armed Saber King, I'm afraid you would need 3 million gold coins. Etienhua, what do you think of this number? Looking at the sneering Zhang Chunren, Etienhua sighed. Zhang Chunren, it's easy for you to say 3 million gold coins. Oomph. Do you think it's 3 million copper coins? You can go to the South region and ask around. How many people have 3 million gold coins? Some people have never seen 3 million gold coins in their entire lives, but now you want me to take out 3 million gold coins. Zhang Chunren, I think you're making things difficult for me. Zhang Chunren shook his head with a sneer. Etienhua, when I heard you persuade Yuan Weiqing just now, I thought you were a very sympathetic person. Now it seems that you're just SOSO. Yuan Weiqing on the side was already burning with anger. He looked at Etienhua and shouted sternly, Etienhua, if you don't give me 3 million gold coins as compensation, you and I are irreconcilable. Even if you can escape today, I will never let you go in the future. Looking at Yuan Weiqing's fierce appearance, Etienhua couldn't help but frown. The reason why he mentioned the matter of the One-Armed Saber King was because he sincerely wanted Yuan Weiqing to pull himself together, even though he had some selfish motives. Of course, Etienhua was also very clear that the One-Armed Saber King's matter couldn't be replicated. The One-Armed Saber King had a good family background. The reason why he could succeed was not only because of elixirs, but also because of his saber skills. To obtain a brilliant saber skill was not an easy matter. It could even be said that it was more difficult than obtaining elixirs, because everyone's martial arts were not taught to outsiders. Some of the martial arts that could be passed on to outsiders were not considered high-level martial arts. If one wanted to obtain those high-level martial arts, it would be impossible to buy them with gold coins. Therefore, if the one-armed Saber King didn't have a good family background, he wouldn't have been able to obtain those brilliant saber skills. Tianhua was also very clear about the one-armed Saber King's growth experience. He was even more clear that no matter how hard Yuan Weiqing worked with his identity, it was impossible for him to reach the level of the one-armed Saber King. Even if Yuan Weiqing had a lot of gold coins and could buy a lot of elixirs, without a brilliant saber skill, he wouldn't become the second one-armed Saber King. The reason why Tianhua said that was to set an example for Yuan Weiqing, to establish a goal, so that he wouldn't be dispirited. As for whether Yuan Weiqing could become the second one-armed Saber King, Tianhua really never thought about it, because it was impossible. Hearing Yuan Weiqing's question, Tianhua hesitated for a moment, then slowly said, "Yuan Weiqing, I can tell you the truth. Even if you have a lot of gold coins, you still can't reach the level of the one-armed Saber King." After hearing Tianhua's words, Zhang Chunren sneered. "Tianhua, why are you saying it's impossible now? Didn't you just say it's possible?" Tianhua shook his head and said with a wry smile, "Yuan Weiqing, one-armed Saber King, is my friend. In the past, his martial arts were not as good as mine, but after this incident, my martial arts are not as good as his. The reason why I said this is to tell you that I hope you can pull yourself together. Don't give up just because your arm is injured. Yuan Weiqing, one-armed Saber King, has a good family background. He has taken a lot of elixirs, and these elixirs have helped him a lot. I won't deny this. But what I want you to know is one-armed Saber King's perseverance. Even if he knew he was crippled, he still didn't give up. Instead, he continued to work hard to cultivate his saber skill and finally became a master of his generation. Yuan Weiqing, I want you to know one-armed Saber King's spirit, this spirit of never giving up. This is the most precious thing, do you understand?" Tianhua's voice just fell, and before Yuan Weiqing could speak, Zhang Chunren said first, "Tianhua, what you said, don't worry about whether we understand or not. I just want to ask you, if one-armed Saber King didn't take so many elixirs with his spirit of never giving up, could he have succeeded?" Hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Tianhua couldn't help but stare blankly for a moment. For a moment, he actually couldn't answer Zhang Chunren's question. At this point, Zhang Chunren's tone paused for a moment, but then he didn't wait for Tianhua to answer his question and continued to speak. "Tianhua, in fact, you don't need to say anything. I already know the answer. It's definitely impossible. Even if one-armed Saber King had a strong perseverance, without the support of those elixirs, he absolutely couldn't have become a master of his generation." At this point, Zhang Chunren's tone paused, and he sighed before continuing, "In Jianghu, everyone who cultivates martial arts doesn't have strong perseverance, but they have both hands. However, those who could become masters of their generation are very few. Tianhua, it's not that their perseverance isn't strong enough, nor is it that they aren't willing to work hard. It's because they don't have a large amount of gold coins to buy those elixirs. As long as there are enough elixirs, even if they don't work hard enough, they can still become masters. Although they won't become absolute masters, they definitely won't be far off. Tianhua, this is the difference. This is the difference between taking elixirs and not taking elixirs. Now, Yuan Weiqing has already lost an arm. If he wants to rely on hard work and bitter training, I can tell you very responsibly that his life is over. I can be sure that no matter how hard he works in the future, being able to reach his current level of martial arts is already very good, not to mention being able to rise up and become a master of his generation. Therefore, if you want Yuan Weiqing to become someone like one-armed Saber King, you must take a large amount of elixirs to increase his strength. Only in this way can Yuan Weiqing have a glimmer of hope to surpass his current self. Chapter 703. Zhang Chunren continued. Tianhua, in order for Yuan Weiqing to pull himself together, I hope you can help him. After hearing Zhang Chunren's reasoning, Tianhua had to admit that he was right. However, it was much more complicated to put into practice than say it out loud. Yuan Weiqing had just said 2 million gold coins, but Zhang Chunren said 3 million gold coins was enough. 3 million gold coins. Tianhua felt dizzy just thinking about it. How could he agree? Thinking of this, Tianhua smiled bitterly and shook his head. Zhang Chunren, no matter what, I do hope that Yuan Weiqing can pull himself together, but the price you want me to pay is too high. 3 million gold coins. Where do you want me to find 3 million gold coins? Aren't you just making things difficult for me? Hearing this, Zhang Chunren shook his head. Tianhua, for you, 3 million gold coins is definitely not a big problem. Even if you don't have 3 million gold coins with your status, it's definitely not a difficult thing to borrow 3 million gold coins. Speaking of this, Zhang Chunren paused for a moment before continuing. Tianhua, now it's up to you whether you're willing to help Yuan Weiqing or not. If you're willing, then you'll borrow gold coins for Yuan Weiqing. Hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Tianhua frowned. Zhang Chunren, I can indeed borrow 3 million gold coins, but with so much gold coins, how can I repay it in the future? Zhang Chunren shook his head. Tianhua, although it's a bit difficult to repay these gold coins, I believe you can definitely afford it. In order to make Yuan Weiqing the second one-armed saber king, Tianhua, can you agree to these conditions? Tianhua shook his head. Zhang Chunren, impossible. 3 million gold coins is such a large sum. You wanted to borrow it? This is impossible. I definitely won't agree. Hearing Tianhua's words, Zhang Chunren suddenly sneered. Tianhua, don't you want to help Yuan Weiqing stand up again? Tianhua shook his head. It's not the same thing. I hope that Yuan Weiqing can regain his confidence. However, I can't compensate him with 3 million gold coins because I have my own difficulties. I hope you can understand. Hearing Tianhua's answer, Zhang Chunren's face suddenly changed color. He roared, Tianhua, do you mean that you want to see Yuan Weiqing continue to be dispirited? Hearing Zhang Chunren question, Tianhua shook his head with a wry smile. Zhang Chunren, how could I have such thoughts? If I did, I wouldn't have told him about the one-armed saber king. It was because I wanted Yuan Weiqing to pull himself together that I said that. Hearing this, Zhang Chunren sneered. Tianhua, since you want Yuan Weiqing to stand up again, why don't you agree to our conditions? At the end of the day, I think you're just making it sound nice. Hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Tianhua frowned. Zhang Chunren, you can't say that. I've already promised to give you 100,000 gold coins to help Yuan Weiqing. Are you still not satisfied with this? Zhang Chunren shook his head. Tianhua, 100,000 gold coins can't even buy a single spiritual medicine. Even if we gave it to you, what use would it be? Speaking up to here, Zhang Chunren paused for a moment. However, he didn't wait for Tianhua to answer his question and continued. Tianhua, if you really want to help Yuan Weiqing, then take out 3 million gold coins. Yuan Weiqing will definitely not forget you in the future. Yuan Weiqing also said loudly, Tianhua, as long as you help me this time, I'll write off our grudges. I promise that I won't trouble you in the future. Hearing the two's words, Tianhua shook his head with a wry smile. Yuan Weiqing, I also want to help you, but 3 million gold coins. How do you expect me to help you? Zhang Chunren sneered, borrow it. Speaking up to here, Zhang Chunren paused for a moment before continuing. Tianhua, as long as you're willing to borrow it, you'll definitely be able to help Yuan Weiqing. Tianhua shook his head. I won't borrow it. This matter doesn't have much to do with me. Why should I borrow it? I've already done my best by being willing to take out 100,000 gold coins. If you want more, you'll have to think of a way yourself. Speaking up to here, Tianhua paused. His eyes suddenly lit up, and he continued. By the way, Zhang Chunren, Yuan Weiqing is the protector of your secret thunder sect in the south region. This time, Yuan Weiqing is seriously injured. Your secret thunder sect in the south region has the responsibility to help Yuan Weiqing. Hearing Etienhua's words, Zhang Chunren shook his head. Etienhua, you don't have to care about what we do. You just have to agree to our conditions. As for how our secret thunder sect in the south region will help Yuan Weiqing, that's our own business. You don't have to worry about it. Hearing this, Etienhua turned to look at Shui Zhijing and said in a deep voice, Hall Master Shui, you're the Hall Master of the secret thunder sect in the south region. You're also someone with status in the south region. You must have seen what happened just now. If Yuan Weiqing hadn't attacked me first, how could I have hurt him? Therefore, I won't be responsible for this matter. If you insist on me taking out 3 million gold coins, then I'm sorry, I won't even take out 100,000 gold coins. Hall Master Shui, tell me, what should we do about this matter? Hearing Etienhua's question, Shui Zhijing frowned. Just as he was about to speak, Zhang Chunren spoke first. Hall Master Shui, what else is there to say? If Etienhua doesn't agree to our conditions, we'll fight him to the end today. Even if we die together, we can't let him leave. Hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Shui Zhijing frowned even more and sighed. Etienhua, you heard it too. If you don't give the corresponding compensation today, I'm afraid you won't be able to leave here. Speaking of this, Shui Zhijing paused before continuing. Etienhua, I think you'd better agree to their conditions. Otherwise, I can't help you. Hearing Shui Zhijing's words, Etienhua sighed and shook his head with a bitter smile. Hall Master Shui, Yuan Weiqing wants 3 million gold coins from me. Zhang Chunren also wants 3 million gold coins from me. The two of them want a total of 6 million gold coins. Hall Master Shui, do you think I could take out 6 million gold coins? Hearing Etienhua's answer, Shui Zhijing also sighed secretly. However, Yuan Weiqing said loudly, Etienhua, it's your problem if you can't take out the gold coins. You can borrow them. In short, as long as you think of a way, I believe you can do it. Zhang Chunren also sneered. Yes, Etienhua, unless you don't want to agree, you can definitely do it. Speaking of this, Zhang Chunren paused for a moment, but then he continued without waiting for Etienhua to answer him. Etienhua, with your identity as the leader of the South County Shadow Alliance, who would believe that you can't even borrow 6 million gold coins? Hearing this, Etienhua sighed. That's right, if I really want to borrow 6 million gold coins, I can indeed borrow 6 million gold coins. But after borrowing, don't I have to pay it back? 6 million gold coins. Do you know how long it will take me to pay it back? Zhang Chunren, let me tell you, I will definitely not agree to this condition of yours. Zhang Chunren sneered and shook his head. Etienhua, since you don't agree, it seems that we can only die together. Don't you think so? Seeing Zhang Chunren pressing on step by step, Etienhua was also a little annoyed. His martial arts skills were high, and if he wanted to defeat Zhang Chunren and the others, although it would take some effort, he could definitely do it. However, it was precisely because he wanted to resolve this matter peacefully that he had been talking to them until now. He never expected that Zhang Chunren and the others would be so unreasonable and say 6 million gold coins, such a terrifying number. Etienhua had already understood that if they continued to negotiate, it might not be 6 million gold coins, but 10 million gold coins. At that time, wouldn't it be even worse? Etienhua sneered. Zhang Chunren, I'll ask you one last time. Are you not going to change your condition? Hearing Etienhua's domineering tone, Zhang Chunren was stunned for a moment. Then he sneered. Etienhua, since you've done something wrong, you must take responsibility. Don't tell me you don't think you deserve compensation? Etienhua shook his head. Zhang Chunren, I've already said that I really don't know about your son, Zhang Huoxing. Why did such a mistake happen? We still need to investigate. Speaking of this, Etienhua paused for a moment before continuing. This matter might be the fault of our South County Shadow Alliance. If that's the case, I will definitely take responsibility. But if the problem is with your South County Secret Thunder Sect, do you want me to take responsibility? Speaking of this, Etienhua paused for a moment, but then he continued without waiting for Zhang Chunren to answer him. There's also the matter of Yuan Weiqing. If he didn't sneak attack me first, how could I hurt him by accident? Don't tell me that every time we hurt someone, No matter what the cause of the injury is, we have to pay compensation? Zhang Chunrin, this is impossible. If this was an accident, or if it was caused by me, I will take responsibility for it. I will not complain no matter what kind of compensation you ask of me. But Yuan Weiqing sneaked an attack on me. Can I fight back? Since he sneaked an attack on me, he should know that it might not succeed. I definitely won't wait for death. It's very likely that I will hurt him. Under such circumstances, Yuan Weiqing still chose to sneak an attack on me. This means that he already knows the consequences. Since he already knows the consequences, he can only bear the consequences himself. He can't blame anyone else. Tianhua turned his head to look at Shui Zhizheng and said with a bitter smile, "Home Master Shui, these two things have nothing to do with me. Why should I pay 6 million gold coins? If it's 100,000 gold coins, I can barely afford it. But if it's 6 million gold coins, please forgive me for not agreeing." Hearing Tianhua's words, Zhang Chunrin's face changed. He suddenly shouted, "Tianhua, don't quibble anymore. If you didn't do that to my son Zhang Huosheng, do you think it was me who did it? Tianhua, if it was someone else, I might believe you're quibbling, but that's my son. How could I harm him? Tianhua, no matter what, my son's matter is definitely not our side's problem. I'm sure that it must be your side's problem. Since it's your side's problem, you must be responsible for compensation. Otherwise, I definitely won't agree." At this point, Zhang Chunrin's tone paused for a moment, but then he didn't wait for Tianhua to reply and continued. "In Yuan Weiqing's matter, you said it has nothing to do with you. Fine, let's talk about it, and see if it has anything to do with you." At this point, Zhang Chunrin paused for a moment before continuing, "Tianhua, let me ask you, why did Yuan Weiqing attack you? Why didn't he find someone else to do it? There are plenty of people in South County City. Why didn't he sneak attack someone else, but you?" Hearing Zhang Chunrin's question, Tianhua was stunned. Just as he was stunned, Zhang Chunrin paused for a moment, but then he didn't wait for Tianhua to reply and continued. "Tianhua, let me tell you, the reason Yuan Weiqing attacked you is because you didn't agree to my conditions. That's why Yuan Weiqing attacked you. Tianhua, if you agreed to my conditions, why would Yuan Weiqing attack you? Since he wouldn't attack you, how could he be injured? Tianhua, why don't you tell me if this has anything to do with you?" As soon as Zhang Chunrin finished speaking, before Tianhua could speak, Yuan Weiqing shouted loudly, "Tianhua, Vice Hall Master Zhang is right. Why would I attack you? Why would I attack you? Could it be that I have nothing better to do? No, it's because you refused to agree to Vice Hall Master Zhang's conditions and compensate for your mistakes that I attacked you. Tianhua, if you had agreed to Vice Hall Master Zhang's conditions as soon as you arrived, we would have gone back by now. Needless to say, I wouldn't have been injured. Even in Hongda and Du Wudai wouldn't have been injured. Tianhua, tell me, is it because of you that so many people were injured?" After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Tianhua couldn't help but frown. He slowly said, "Yuan Weiqing, I didn't agree to Zhang Chunrin's conditions because his conditions were too high. I couldn't agree. But if I didn't agree to his conditions, is that the reason why you attacked me?" After hearing Tianhua's words, Yuan Weiqing sneered, "Tianhua, do you know that our Vice Hall Master Zhang only has one son? Now, this son has been killed by the snow leopard. Have you thought about what will happen to Vice Hall Master Zhang in the future? Tianhua, Vice Hall Master Zhang will live in pain and loneliness. Do you know how unbearable this pain is? Although he wants you to compensate 3 million gold coins, if his son can come back, even if he gives you another 3 million gold coins, I think Vice Hall Master Zhang won't frown. Tianhua, if your son had such a problem, I think you wouldn't be asking for 3 million gold coins, but 10 million gold coins." Chapter 704. Zhang Chunrin sneered, "Tianhua, I think you'll want even more." Hearing Zhang Chunrin's words, Tianhua froze for a moment and then shook his head. "Zhang Chunrin, let's not talk about that. Let's talk about you and Yuan Weiqing first." Hearing Tianhua's words, Zhang Chunrin sneered, "Tianhua, why can't you say it? Are you afraid to say it?" Tianhua shook his head. "Zhang Chunrin, What's the point of talking about things that haven't happened yet? Speaking of this, Tianhua paused for a moment before continuing. Zhang Chunrin, let's talk about the problem we want to solve now. Zhang Chunrin nodded. Okay. Tianhua, then agree to our conditions, and this matter will be solved naturally. Tianhua frowned. Zhang Chunrin, I've already said that your conditions are so high. How can I agree? Hearing Tianhua's answer, Zhang Chunrin hesitated for a moment before slowly saying, Tianhua, there are two ways to solve this problem. One is 6 million gold coins. Maybe you don't have that much, but I believe you can borrow it. The other way is to give each of us 500,000 gold coins and 5 years of free information. Then, this matter will naturally be resolved. Tianhua, no matter which condition you choose, as long as you meet my conditions, our matter today will be over. What do you think? Hearing Zhang Chunrin's words, Tianhua shook his head. Zhang Chunrin, I'm afraid I can't agree to either of the two conditions you mentioned. Speaking of this, Tianhua paused for a moment before continuing. Zhang Chunrin, I've already said many times that I don't have 600 gold coins. As for borrowing, it's impossible. The matter between the two of you has nothing to do with me. Why should I borrow so many gold coins for this matter? Therefore, I won't agree to the condition of 6 million gold coins. As for the second condition, although the amount of gold coins has been reduced, I'm afraid I can't agree to 5 years of free information. Zhang Chunrin, we're all from the South Commandery. I hope you don't always ask these harsh questions to make things difficult for me. Hearing Tianhua's answer, Zhang Chunrin was really angry and shouted sternly. Tianhua, what do you mean? You said you don't have 6 million gold coins. I can reduce the amount, but you have to compensate me in other ways. Is 5 years of free information really that important? Hearing Zhang Chunrin's words, Tianhua shook his head with a bitter smile. Zhang Chunrin, 5 years of free information is very important. It's just like how the secret Thunder sect in the South Commandery gave me the secret recipe of the Thunderbolt pill. If it were you, would you give me the secret recipe of the Thunderbolt pill? Hearing Tianhua's answer, Zhang Chunrin was stunned for a moment and then shook his head. Tianhua, how can it be the same? I only want 5 years of free information from you. I won't participate in the normal operation of the South Commandery Shadow Alliance. After 5 years, the 5 years of free information will naturally end. Will it affect the South Commandery Shadow Alliance in any way? As soon as Zhang Chunrin finished speaking, Yuan Weiqing did not wait for Tianhua to answer and said loudly, How can it affect us? We just got some information. How can it affect us? Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment before continuing. Tianhua, you're too cautious. Are you also so cautious when selling information to others? Tianhua nodded. Of course. If I'm not cautious in such an important matter, once there's a mistake, wouldn't I have made a big mistake? Hearing Tianhua's words, Zhang Chunrin immediately sneered. Tianhua, since you're so cautious, why was my son killed by the snow leopard? Could it be that you did it on purpose? Hearing this, Tianhua was a little annoyed. Zhang Chunrin, don't talk nonsense. How could I do it on purpose? Zhang Chunrin sneered. Tianhua, if you didn't do it on purpose, then tell me, since you're so cautious, why would such a problem occur? How could my son be killed by the snow leopard? Tianhua frowned. Zhang Chunrin, it's precisely because of this reason that I'm suspecting that there's something fishy about this matter. Therefore, I have to go back and investigate before I can give you a satisfactory answer. Zhang Chunrin shook his head. Tianhua, we're not kids anymore. Don't lie to me. You said that you want to go back and investigate this matter, but we all know the real reason. You better stop acting and quickly solve this matter before it embarrasses us all. Hearing Zhang Chunrin's words, Tianhua sighed. Zhang Chunrin, I've already said that I'm not sure about this matter. I have to investigate this matter thoroughly before I can decide what kind of compensation to give you. But I don't know anything now. How do you want me to compensate you? Hearing Tianhua's words, Yuan Weiqing suddenly said loudly, Tianhua, even if you're not sure about Vice Hall Leader Zhang's matter, let me ask you. My arm was injured by you. That shouldn't be wrong, right? But why aren't you compensating me? Hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Yi Tianhua shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, you can't blame me for what happened to you. You were the one who attacked me first, and I was forced to fight back. Even if you were seriously injured, you can't blame it on me. Hearing Yi Tianhua's words, Zhang Chunren suddenly let out a cold laugh. Yi Tianhua, I understand why you want to go back and investigate this matter. I think that after you go back and investigate, you'll treat me the same way you treated Yuan Weiqing, right? Speaking up to this point, Zhang Chunren paused for a moment. However, he didn't wait for Yi Tianhua's reply and continued speaking. Hearing Yi Tianhua's question, Zhang Chunren smiled coldly and shook his head. Yi Tianhua, I've already said that 1 million gold coins is fine, but you have to add on 5 years of free information. Only then will I agree. Do you understand? Hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Yi Tianhua's eyes flashed coldly. Just as he was about to speak, Zhang Chunren continued. Yi Tianhua, this is already my bottom line. If you're still not satisfied, then there's nothing I can do. Yi Tianhua frowned and suddenly laughed coldly. Zhang Chunren, I can't agree to your conditions. I'm sure you're very clear about this. I'm afraid that I'm not the only one who can't take out 3 million gold coins. I think that no one here has 3 million gold coins. It can even be said that all of you added together don't have 3 million gold coins. Moreover, you wanted to compensate Yuan Weiqing with 3 million gold coins. That's a total of 6 million gold coins. I just want to ask you, can all of you come up with that amount? Hearing Yi Tianhua's words, Xue Zhijing sighed inwardly. He knew that Yi Tianhua was right. If it was only him, he wouldn't even be able to take out 500,000 gold coins, let alone 6 million gold coins. Zhang Chunren did not care. He laughed coldly and said loudly, Yi Tianhua, I admit that you're right. We really don't have 6 million gold coins. Even if all of us added together, we definitely won't be able to take out 6 million gold coins. However, we wouldn't do such a bad thing. Why should we take out so many gold coins? Chapter 705. Zhang Chunren sneered. Yi Tianhua, if you didn't do anything wrong, you wouldn't have to bear the responsibility. But since you did something wrong, you must bear the responsibility. Yi Tianhua, don't you think so? After hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Yi Tianhua frowned. Zhang Chunren, if I really did something wrong, even if I take out 6 million gold coins, I, Yi Tianhua, will accept it. But I've already made it very clear that I don't know anything about your matter. Why should I take so much compensation? Zhang Chunren shook his head. Yi Tianhua, didn't we make it clear just now? In the Shadow Alliance, apart from you, Yi Tianhua, I don't think anyone else would be able to sell fake information. So I'm sure that you did this. If you still want to deny it, then you're looking down on us. Yi Tianhua shook his head. Zhang Chunren, but this matter is very likely to be done by your secret Thunder sect. Speaking of this, Yi Tianhua paused for a moment, but then he continued without waiting for Zhang Chunren to answer. If we sold you real information, but you said it was fake, then what can we do? Hearing Yi Tianhua's words, Zhang Chunren was furious. Yi Tianhua, do you think I harmed my son? Yuan Weiqing also said loudly, Yi Tianhua, you're talking nonsense. How could our Vice Hall Master Zhang harm his son? Are you still dreaming? After hearing their words, Yi Tianhua frowned. Zhang Chunren, even if you didn't do this, can you guarantee that it wasn't someone around you who did it? After hearing Yi Tianhua's words, Zhang Chunren sneered and shook his head. Yi Tianhua, don't quibble anymore. Other than the few of us who know about this operation, no one else knows. Speaking of this, Zhang Chunren paused for a moment before continuing. Yi Tianhua, are you saying that there's a problem among us? Hearing this, Yi Tianhua sighed. Zhang Chunren, we have to investigate this matter properly and find out where the problem lies. If we don't find out the truth of this matter, I think it will be a big problem in the future. Zhang Chunren shook his head. Yi Tianhua, I don't want to think about those things anymore. I just want to ask you, do you agree to our compensation? Etienne shook his head. Your conditions are too high. Even if I want to agree, I'm afraid I can't fulfill your conditions. Hearing Etienne's words, Zhang Chunren gritted his teeth and slowly took out a thunderbolt pill. He said coldly, Etienne, if you don't agree to our conditions, don't blame me for being rude. Seeing that Zhang Chunren was about to make a move, Yuan Weiqing, who was at the side, did not want to be outdone. He immediately used his remaining hand to take out a thunderbolt ball and shouted, Etienne, you have to agree to my 3 million gold coins today, no matter what. Otherwise, I'll take you down with me. Looking at the thunderclap pills in their hands, Etienne was taken aback. He instinctively took a step back and yelled out, Zhang Chunren, are you really not afraid of causing a conflict between our two gangs? Hearing Etienne's words, Zhang Chunren laughed coldly. Etienne, I'll tell you the truth now. I don't care so much anymore. I only want to avenge my son. As for whether our two gangs will fight or not, I don't want to think about it anymore. Saying this, Zhang Chunren paused for a moment. However, he did not wait for Etienne to reply and continued. Etienne, if you're smart, quickly agree to my conditions. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude. Yuan Weiqing shouted. Etienne, you just said that you want to see me become the second one-armed blade king. Then why don't you help me and agree to my conditions? Hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Etienne sighed. Yuan Weiqing, I also want to agree to your conditions, but your conditions are too high. 3 million gold coins. What do you want me to give you? Yuan Weiqing stared at Etienne and asked loudly, Etienne, does this mean that everything you said just now was a lie? Etienne shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, I won't lie to you. I really hope that you can pull yourself together and not be dispirited. Saying this, Etienne paused for a moment before continuing. Yuan Weiqing, maybe you can't become the second one-armed blade king, but I can promise you that as long as you're willing to work hard, you'll definitely stand up again. Do you understand? Yuan Weiqing shook his head. Etienne, you're lying to me. If you don't agree to my conditions, how can I pull myself together? Without the spiritual herbs, no matter how hard I try, I won't succeed. Etienne, do you understand? I really need those gold coins right now. As long as I have those gold coins, I can buy a large amount of spiritual herbs to increase my strength. Etienne, I'm begging you. Just agree to my conditions. Even if you help me this time, I'll definitely not forget you in the future. Hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Etienne sighed. Yuan Weiqing, I also want to help you, but 3 million gold coins, I really don't have it. If 100,000 gold coins were possible, Etienne would definitely give it to you with both hands. I definitely won't let you down. Hearing Etienne's words, Zhang Chunren suddenly said loudly, Etienne, are you deaf? Didn't you hear that Yuan Weiqing wants 3 million gold coins? Humph, 100,000 gold coins? What can you do with 100,000 gold coins? I'm afraid that 100,000 gold coins can't even buy a single spiritual herb. What's the use of that? Etienne, if you really want Yuan Weiqing to pull himself together, quickly agree to his conditions and immediately prepare the gold coins for him. This way, Yuan Weiqing can stand up again. After hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Yuan Weiqing immediately stared at Etienne and asked loudly, Etienne, don't worry. If I can become a person like One-Armed Saber King, I promise I won't forget you. Etienne, believe me, I'll definitely repay you when the time comes. Hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Etienne sighed. Yuan Weiqing, you're making it difficult for me. Yuan Weiqing, 3 million gold coins isn't a small amount. I really can't raise so many gold coins. Even if I want to help, I can't. Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing immediately said loudly, Etienne, you can borrow. I believe that as long as you're willing to borrow, you'll definitely be able to borrow 3 million gold coins. You're the boss of the South County Shadow Alliance. I believe that many people will give you face. I think it won't be difficult for you to raise 3 million gold coins. Etienne, just tell me this time. How about it? Tianhua shook his head with a bitter smile. Yuan Weiqing, you only want me to help you. But have you ever thought about how I'll repay you if I borrow 3 million gold coins for you? After hearing Tianhua's words, Yuan Weiqing was stunned for a moment and then said loudly, Tianhua, don't worry. As long as I can become the second one-armed saber king, I'll definitely repay the gold coins for you. Don't worry. When the time comes, the two of us will repay the gold coins. There won't be a problem. After hearing these words, Zhang Chunrin also laughed loudly and said, Tianhua, what Yuan Weiqing said is right. If he had the same ability as the one-armed saber king, then with just the two of you, it would definitely not be a problem to obtain this amount of gold coins. Tianhua sighed. Zhang Chunrin, it was Yuan Weiqing who attacked me first. That's why I hurt him. Do you think Yuan Weiqing was right to attack me? After hearing Tianhua's words, Zhang Chunrin nodded without hesitation. Tianhua, you're right. Yuan Weiqing did the right thing. Tianhua frowned. Zhang Chunrin, is it right for Yuan Weiqing to sneak attack me? Zhang Chunrin nodded. Tianhua, if you agreed to our conditions, Yuan Weiqing wouldn't have attacked you and his arm wouldn't have been injured. Tianhua, think about the cause and effect of the recent events. You'll understand that it's all your fault. If you agreed to my conditions earlier, all these things wouldn't have happened. After hearing Zhang Chunrin's words, Tianhua shook his head. Zhang Chunrin, you're wrong. Regardless of whether I agree or not, you shouldn't have taken action. Everyone has to be reasonable. I think we'll be able to come up with a solution eventually. How could we possibly resort to violence? After hearing Tianhua's words, Zhang Chunrin sneered. Tianhua, are you saying that if you don't agree to our conditions, we can't think of a solution and can only listen to you? Tianhua shook his head. Zhang Chunrin, don't misunderstand me. What I'm saying is that we could discuss a solution. It won't reach the point of attacking you. When Zhang Chunrin heard this, he sneered. Tianhua, let me ask you. If you were me and I didn't agree to your conditions, what would you do? After hearing Zhang Chunrin's words, Tianhua was stunned for a moment. He smiled bitterly and said, Zhang Chunrin, if it were me, I would definitely ask you to go back and investigate this matter. We'll talk about a solution after you find out what happened. After hearing Tianhua's words, Zhang Chunrin nodded. Tianhua, if I did as you said, it would take me 8 to 10 years to investigate this matter. Would you wait? When Tianhua heard this, he immediately frowned. Zhang Chunrin, how could you investigate for so long? I believe that as long as you investigate carefully, you should be able to find out the truth of the problem very quickly. Zhang Chunrin shook his head. Tianhua, what I'm saying is that I've deliberately investigated for so long. What do you do to me? At this point, Zhang Chunrin paused for a moment, but then he continued without waiting for Tianhua to answer him. Moreover, not only do I have to investigate for so long, but I also won't meet you, so that you won't be able to find me even if you want to. Tianhua, what would you do if you encountered such a thing? After hearing Zhang Chunrin's words, Tianhua hurriedly waved his hand. Zhang Chunrin, how could this be? As long as we investigate the matter clearly, we can naturally discuss a solution together. Why we have to hide? After hearing Tianhua's words, Zhang Chunrin sneered. Tianhua, this is because everything was done by you. You deliberately sold us fake information and wanted to harm our secret Thunder sect in the South County. Hearing this, Tianhua's expression changed drastically. He hurriedly waved his hand. Zhang Chunrin, you've gone too far. We have no enmity. Why would I harm your South County's Tanlei sect? Benefits. As soon as Tianhua finished speaking, Zhang Chunrin said loudly, Tianhua, you're doing this for the sake of benefits. Tianhua shook his head. I wouldn't. Why would I do such a thing for these benefits? At this point, Tianhua paused for a moment, but then, without waiting for Zhang Chunrin to answer him, he continued. Zhang Chunrin, our two sects have never had any enmity for so many years. We have always been at peace. Could it be that I would harm your South County's Tanlei sect just because of some benefits? Zhang Chunrin nodded when he heard this. That's right. You came to harm our South County's Tanlei sect because of this little benefit. After hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Yi Tianhua could no longer hold it in and said loudly, Zhang Chunren, this is all your one-sided words. What evidence do you have to prove that I'm such a person? Zhang Chunren sneered. Yi Tianhua, do you still need any evidence? At this point, Zhang Chunren paused for a moment before continuing, however, if you want evidence, fine. Then let me ask you, in the South County Shadow Alliance, are you the only one who can sell fake information? After hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Yi Tianhua shook his head. I can indeed sell fake information, but why would I do that? As soon as Yi Tianhua finished speaking, before Zhang Chunren could speak, Yuan Weiqing had already said loudly, Yi Tianhua, you framed our South County's Tanlei sect for the sake of benefits. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Zhang Chunren nodded. Yuan Weiqing is right. Yi Tianhua, that's why you did this. At this point, Zhang Chunren paused for a moment, but then he continued without waiting for Yi Tianhua to answer him. Yi Tianhua, under such circumstances, if you were me, would you still let me leave? After hearing their conversation, Yi Tianhua sighed. Zhang Chunren, are you sure that I'm the one who did this? Zhang Chunren nodded. Yi Tianhua, other than you, I really can't think of anyone else who can do such a thing. Yuan Weiqing also said loudly, Yi Tianhua, you just said that in the South County Shadow Alliance, you're the only one who can sell fake information. Therefore, I'm sure that you must have done this because other than you, no one else can do this. Yi Tianhua, now that things have come to this, I think you shouldn't quibble anymore. There's no point in quibbling anymore. Instead, we'll look down on you. Chapter 706. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Yi Tianhua shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, I don't know about this. How can I agree to compensate you? Zhang Chunren sneered. Yi Tianhua, what else do you not know? I think you're just pretending not to know. You want to delay this matter, and then take the opportunity to slip away. Don't you think so? As soon as Zhang Chunren finished speaking before Yi Tianhua could answer, Yuan Weiqing shouted sternly, Yi Tianhua, I'm telling you, if you don't agree to our conditions today, we will definitely not let you go. After hearing their words, Yi Tianhua frowned and said in a deep voice, Zhang Chunren, have you always thought that I did this? Zhang Chunren said loudly, Yi Tianhua, do you still think that you can quibble about it? All of this was your plan. First, you harmed 2 senior craftsmen of our Tanlei sect in the South County. Now, do you want to harm more people? Yi Tianhua heard this and said angrily, Zhang Chunren, don't talk nonsense. What right do you have to say that I want to harm more people? Zhang Chunren sneered and said, Yi Tianhua, haven't you harmed enough people? More than a dozen people were harmed by you. Isn't that enough? Hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Yi Tianhua's brows furrowed even tighter. He let out a long sigh and slowly said, Zhang Chunren, I've already said it. If I did this, I wouldn't have come to your date. The fact that I'm here today proves that I didn't do it. It must be someone else. It's just that we don't know who that person is. After hearing Yi Tianhua's words, Zhang Chunren sneered and shook his head. Yi Tianhua, do you think I'll believe you? Yi Tianhua sighed. Zhang Chunren, I don't care if you believe it or not, but this is the truth. Zhang Chunren suddenly said loudly, Yi Tianhua, what do you mean by the truth? I only know that you killed my son, Zhang Huasheng, 2 senior craftsmen, and more than a dozen apprentices of Tanlei sect in South Commandery. This is the truth. No matter what you say, you can't change the truth. Yi Tianhua sighed. Zhang Chunren, it's true that your son was killed, but it has nothing to do with us. Even if it has something to do with us, it's definitely not my doing. Don't you understand? Zhang Chunren shook his head. Yi Tianhua, you don't have to quibble anymore. I can tell you that other than you, no one else can do this. Yuan Weiqing said loudly, Yi Tianhua, Vice Hall Master Zhang is right. The rules of the South County Shadow Alliance are so strict. Other than you, no one else can sell fake information under such strict rules. Yi Tianhua, you should stop quibbling. As long as you agree to our conditions, this matter will be considered over. Yi Tianhua shook his head. It's impossible for me to agree. Your conditions are too harsh. Even if I want to agree, I can't find the gold coins. At this point, Tianhua paused, but then, without waiting for Yuan Weiqing to answer him, he snorted coldly and continued. As for you wanting me to borrow the gold coins, let me tell you, it's impossible. I didn't do anything wrong, so why should I be responsible? Hearing Tianhua's words, Yuan Weiqing was enraged and shouted, Tianhua, what do you mean? Weren't you the one who injured my arm? Tianhua shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, it's different. I was passively counterattacking. The main reason is you. If you didn't want to sneak attack me, I wouldn't have hurt you. So, even if you want me to be responsible, I can only bear a small part of the responsibility. It's impossible for me to bear all of it. Hearing Tianhua's answer, Yuan Weiqing immediately became angry and shouted, Tianhua, I'm telling you today. If you don't agree to my conditions, don't even think about leaving here today. Even if I die with you, I won't let you leave. Do you understand? Hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Tianhua shook his head with a bitter smile. Yuan Weiqing, I'll tell you the truth. Actually, you don't have to hold on to me. You really don't. At this point, Tianhua paused, but then, without waiting for Yuan Weiqing to answer him, he continued. Yuan Weiqing, what's the main reason you're here today? Hearing Tianhua's question, Yuan Weiqing sneered. Of course it's about our Deputy Hall, Master Zhang. Do you think that after hurting Deputy Hall Master Zhang's son, Zhang Huosheng, we'll just let it go like this? Hearing this, Tianhua hurriedly waved his hand. Yuan Weiqing, let's not talk about this first. I just want to tell you that you're helping Zhang Chunren today. Now that your arm is injured, I think that the person you're helping, Zhang Chunren, won't care, right? Hearing Tianhua's words, Zhang Chunren's expression changed, and he suddenly shouted, Tianhua, what do you mean by this? Hearing Zhang Chunren's question, Tianhua sighed. Zhang Chunren, I don't mean anything else. I just want to tell Yuan Weiqing that since he's here to help you, and now that his arm is injured, are you just going to watch and do nothing? Zhang Chunren snorted coldly. Tianhua, this is between us. I hope you don't interfere. Tianhua shook his head and laughed bitterly. Zhang Chunren, I don't want to interfere either, but Yuan Weiqing won't let me go. I have no choice but to tell the truth. Speaking up to this point, Tianhua's tone paused, but he didn't wait for Zhang Chunren's reply and continued with a snort. Zhang Chunren, you asked Yuan Weiqing to ask me for 3 million gold coins as compensation. Zhang Chunren, of this 3 million gold coins, you'll have to bear at least half of it, right? Hearing Tianhua's words, Zhang Chunren sneered. Tianhua, don't spout nonsense. That 3 million gold coins is Yuan Weiqing's compensation. What does it have to do with me? Hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Tianhua laughed coldly. Zhang Chunren, you're too heartless. No matter what, Yuan Weiqing is here to help you. Now that his arm is injured, you don't want to help. Isn't this a little too much? Hearing this, Zhang Chunren was instantly enraged and shouted sternly, Tianhua, this has nothing to do with you. We'll settle our own matters, do you understand? Tianhua shook his head. Yuan Weiqing needs 3 million gold coins to buy enough spiritual medicine. In order for Yuan Weiqing to stand up again, I think that as Vice Hall Master Zhang, you can't possibly not support him, right? Speaking up to this point, Tianhua paused, but then, without waiting for Zhang Chunren to reply, he snorted coldly and continued speaking. Zhang Chunren, to tell you the truth, it's impossible for me to take out 3 million gold coins. Since you said that you want Yuan Weiqing to stand up again, then I can only let you take out 3 million gold coins. As long as you take out 3 million gold coins to help Yuan Weiqing, then Yuan Weiqing's help this time won't be in vain. If you don't take out 3 million gold coins to help Yuan Weiqing, then I feel that it's not worth it for Yuan Weiqing. You're actually not willing to take out 3 million gold coins to help someone that he recognizes as a crippled arm to help. Isn't this a little disappointing for Yuan Weiqing? After hearing Tianhua's words, Zhang Chunren was stunned for a moment. Then he laughed coldly. Tianhua, you really know how to talk. After all this talk, you actually want to pass on the 3 million gold coins that Yuan Weiqing asked from you to me. You're really calculating, aren't you? Speaking up to this point, Zhang Chunren paused, but then, without waiting for Yi Tianhua to reply, he snorted coldly and continued speaking. However, Yi Tianhua, do you think that will fall for your trick? Let me tell you, that's impossible. Yuan Weiqing asking you for 3 million gold coins is a matter between the two of you. It has nothing to do with us. As for my help, you don't need to think about it. I'll naturally do it. Yi Tianhua, don't think of any bad ideas. Hurry up and take out 3 million gold coins to help Yuan Weiqing. Hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Yi Tianhua only shook his head. Zhang Chunren, I've said before, we have 3 million gold coins. Speaking up to this point, Yi Tianhua paused for a moment before continuing. However, we both want Yuan Weiqing to stand up again. Yuan Weiqing urgently needs this sum of gold coins, but I can't take it out. So in order to help Yuan Weiqing stand up again, I can only let you take this sum of gold coins. Zhang Chunren, I don't think you'll refuse, right? Hearing Yi Tianhua's words, Zhang Chunren clenched his teeth. Yi Tianhua, I've already said that you don't need to care about our matters. Just take out 3 million gold coins, and this matter will be over. Don't you understand? Yi Tianhua shook his head and turned to look at Yuan Weiqing, saying with a bitter smile, Yuan Weiqing, I'll tell you the truth, I really can't take out this sum of gold coins. However, just because I can't take out this sum of gold coins, you'll be dispirited? Hearing Yi Tianhua's words, Yuan Weiqing frowned and asked loudly, Yi Tianhua, I know you can't take out this sum of gold coins, but you can borrow it. I think that as long as you're willing to borrow, you'll definitely be able to borrow 3 million gold coins. Yi Tianhua shook his head. That's impossible. I can't borrow such a large sum of gold coins just because of this matter, so the 3 million gold coins you want me to compensate definitely won't happen. Yuan Weiqing, this is my truth. The reason why I'm telling you this is because I don't want to see you dispirited. I hope you can pull yourself together and really become the second one-armed saber king. Yuan Weiqing, although I can't help you too much by myself, there's no Vice Hall Master Zhang. I think that as long as he's willing to help, these 3 million gold coins definitely won't be a problem. At that time, with these 3 million gold coins to buy elixirs, in addition to your aptitude, I think that even if you can't become the second one-armed saber king, you'll definitely have good attainments. Yuan Weiqing, for your own sake, you have to think clearly about this point. You can't give up on yourself and lose the chance to stand up again just because I don't compensate you with gold coins. Hearing Yi Tianhua's words, Yuan Weiqing couldn't help but frown. Although he knew what Yi Tianhua meant, he was also very clear that Yi Tianhua's words were absolutely reasonable. Now that he had lost an arm, although he could still use some martial arts, Yuan Weiqing was also clear that he could only use half of his martial arts. His strength had declined. Then would his status as a protector also decline? Yuan Weiqing also had some savings, but relying on that little bit of savings to buy a large amount of elixirs, this was directly an impossible matter. If he wanted to stand up again, he had to do, as Yi Tianhua said, and get enough gold coins to buy a large amount of elixirs to increase his strength. Yuan Weiqing was also very clear that it was almost impossible to get Yi Tianhua to take out 3 million gold coins, unless everyone restrained Yi Tianhua and used force to threaten him. Only then would Yi Tianhua be able to borrow gold coins for him. However, Yi Tianhua's martial arts were so high that it was simply too difficult to restrain him. Yi Tianhua saw Yuan Weiqing frowning and not saying anything, and knew that he had been persuaded by his words. He was immediately overjoyed and hurriedly tried to persuade him again. Yuan Weiqing, think about it carefully. You can't miss this opportunity. At this point, Yi Tianhua paused for a moment before continuing. Yuan Weiqing, if you miss this opportunity, you won't have another chance. Without enough gold coins, it's impossible for you to stand up again. Do you understand? Yuan Weiqing's expression was naturally seen by Zhang Chunren, who was standing at the side. He was instantly shocked and hurriedly said, Yuan Weiqing, you must not listen to his nonsense. As long as we capture Yi Tianhua, we will naturally be able to get him to take out 3 million gold coins. At this point, Zhang Chunren paused for a moment, but immediately after, without waiting for Yuan Weiqing to reply, he turned to look at Yi Tianhua and said with a cold smile, Tianhua, I advise you to stop thinking about these useless ideas. You only have one choice now, and that is to quickly agree to our terms. Other than that, you have no other choice. After hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Tianhua only smiled faintly, his gaze still fixed on Yuan Weiqing as he continued to persuade him. Yuan Weiqing, you have to think carefully. I'm not afraid to tell you that even if you capture me, I will definitely not give you the gold coins because I don't have that much money to begin with. What can I give you? Yuan Weiqing, you have to think clearly. If you make a move against me, not only will you not get the gold coins, you will also lose your last chance. Hearing Tianhua's words, Zhang Chunren did not wait for Yuan Weiqing to speak and shouted sternly, Tianhua, do you really think that if we capture you, you will not take out the gold coins? Tianhua turned to look at Zhang Chunren and said with a cold smile, Zhang Chunren, if I don't take out the gold coins, what can you do to me? Hearing Tianhua's words, Zhang Chunren immediately laughed coldly. Chapter 707. Hearing Tianhua's words, Zhang Chunren laughed coldly. Tianhua, if you really want to know, we can give it a try. When the time comes, you'll know whether or not you'll agree. After saying this, Zhang Chunren had already slowly raised his hand, looking like he was ready to attack. Seeing this, Tianhua did not dare to delay. He hurriedly took a step back, his gaze fixed on Zhang Chunren as he shouted sternly, Zhang Chunren, do you really want to fight? Seeing this, Yuan Weiqing hurriedly shouted, Tianhua, you'd better agree to our terms quickly. Otherwise, Vice Hall leader Zhang is really going to attack. Tianhua gritted his teeth and glared fiercely at Zhang Chunren as he shouted sternly, Zhang Chunren, are you really not afraid of causing a conflict between the two factions? Zhang Chunren laughed coldly. Tianhua, at this point, what do you think I have to be afraid of? My son has already been harmed by you. I'm the only one left. What can I do? Saying this, Zhang Chunren paused for a moment, but immediately after, without waiting for Tianhua to reply, he continued to speak. Tianhua, I advise you to agree to my terms quickly. Once I really attack, even if you want to regret it, it'll be too late. Hearing this, Tianhua shook his head. Zhang Chunren, I've already said that I don't know about this, so I won't agree to your terms. Hearing Tianhua's reply, Zhang Chunren laughed coldly. Tianhua, I'll count to 3 now. If you don't agree, don't blame me for being rude. At this point, Zhang Chunren paused and turned to look at Shui Zhijing before continuing. Home Master Shui, you've heard it too. Tianhua doesn't want to agree to my terms. Now we can only take action. Hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Shui Zhijing hesitated for a moment before nodding. Then, he turned to look at Tianhua and said loudly, Tianhua, I advise you to agree. Otherwise, when we use the Thunderbolt pill, I'm afraid we can't guarantee your safety. After hearing Shui Zhijing's words, Tianhua sighed. Hall Master Shui, don't you trust me? Shui Zhijing shook his head. Tianhua, it's not that I don't believe you, but Vice Hall Master Zhang is right. No matter what, your South County Shadow Alliance has harmed his son, so you have to compensate him. But since you're unwilling to compensate us, we can only take action. Hearing Shui Zhijing's reply, Tianhua smiled bitterly and shook his head. Hall Master Shui, you still don't believe me? Before Shui Zhijing could say anything, Zhang Chunren sneered and said, Tianhua, why should Hall Master Shui believe you? We've already said that since you've done something wrong, you must compensate us. Otherwise, we won't agree. Yuan Weiqing also said loudly, Vice Hall leader Zhang is right. Tianhua, you have to compensate me. My arm was hurt so badly by you. 3 million gold coins, not a single gold coin less. Otherwise, I won't agree to it. Hearing their words, Tianhua could not help but frown and sigh. Zhang Chunren, I've already said it. What else do you want me to say? I don't know about your son's matter. How can I compensate you? At this point, Tianhua paused and turned to look at Yuan Weiqing before continuing. Yuan Weiqing, and you sneak attacked me first. That's why I attacked you. If you didn't sneak attack me, I wouldn't have hurt you. Seeing that our two gangs get along well, I can give you 100,000 gold coins as compensation. Of course, I'm only sponsoring you because of friendship. It's definitely not because I did something wrong. Do you understand? At this point, Tianhua paused for a moment, but then he continued without waiting for Yuan Weiqing to answer him. Yuan Weiqing, if you agree to the 100,000 gold coins, I'll give it to you immediately and settle your matter. What do you think? Hearing Tianhua's words, Yuan Weiqing's expression suddenly changed. He sternly shouted, Tianhua, stop dreaming. Keep the 100,000 gold coins for yourself. I only want my 3 million gold coins. If you agree, I'll let you go today. If you don't, then don't blame us for being impolite. Xue Zhizheng, who had been silent all this time, frowned and turned to look at Zhang Chunrin. He lowered his voice and said, Zhang Chunrin, why don't you lower your conditions and settle this matter? After hearing Xue Zhizheng's words, Zhang Chunrin shook his head. Master Xue, can't you see that Tianhua has never thought of agreeing to our conditions? Even if we lower the conditions, he will definitely not agree to our conditions. Leader Xue, at this point, we have no other choice but to fight. Hearing Zhang Chunrin's words, Xue Zhizheng frowned and said in a low voice, Zhang Chunrin, we could try. If we can avoid fighting, we'll try not to. At this point, Xue Zhizheng paused for a moment before continuing. Vice Hall Leader Zhang, you should know that once we fight, it's very likely that it'll cause a fight between our two factions. When that time comes, it'll be really bad. Zhang Chunrin shook his head. Hall Leader Xue, don't you trust me? Hearing this, Xue Zhizheng smiled bitterly. Zhang Chunrin, in order to not cause a fight between our two factions, I think you should try. Hearing Xue Zhizheng's words, Zhang Chunrin frowned and muttered to himself for a moment before slowly saying, Hall Leader Xue, since you've said so, how much should we lower our conditions? Hearing Zhang Chunrin's question, Xue Zhizheng frowned and asked tentatively, Vice Hall Leader Zhang, the 3 million gold coins you want from Tianhua is indeed a bit too much. In my opinion, how about 5 million gold coins? 5 million gold coins? Hearing Xue Zhizheng's number, Zhang Chunrin did not even hesitate and immediately rejected it. No, that's too little. 3 million gold coins. How could it be reduced to 5 million gold coins? At this point, Zhang Chunrin paused for a moment, but immediately after, he did not wait for Xue Zhizheng to reply and continued. Hall Leader Xue, 5 million gold coins. If Tianhua agrees, I'll agree too. What do you think of this trii? Hearing Zhang Chunrin's number, Xue Zhizheng could not help but frown. Seeing that Xue Zhizheng didn't speak, Zhang Chunrin sighed, Master Xue, don't forget that the person they harmed is my son. I only have one son. Even asking for 3 million gold coins is a small amount. If it weren't for the sake of our two gangs, I would have asked for 10 million gold coins from him in order to not cause a fight. Now, for your sake, I'll reduce it to 5 million gold coins. This is already the minimum. If it's any lower, I won't agree. After hearing Zhang Chunrin's words, Xue Zhizheng sighed. No matter what, Zhang Chunrin was the victim. He could only make the decision regarding the conditions. Thinking of this, Xue Zhizheng smiled bitterly and nodded. He turned to Tianhua and said loudly, Tianhua, I've already discussed with Vice Hall Leader Zhang. We can lower the conditions for your compensation. At this point, Xue Zhizheng paused for a moment before continuing. Tianhua, you can only pay 5 million gold coins. If you agree, we'll let this matter rest. What do you think? 5 million gold coins? After hearing Xue Zhizheng's words, Tianhua smiled bitterly and shook his head. Hall Leader Xue, thank you very much. However, 5 million gold coins is not a small amount. If you want to take it out, you're really making things difficult for me. Before Xue Zhizheng could say anything, Zhang Chunrin sneered, Master Xue, I was right, wasn't I? Tianhua never thought of agreeing to our conditions. He only wants to reject our conditions so that we can let him go. He's dreaming. Unless he kills me, I won't let him go so easily. Yuan Weiqing also shouted. Yes, there's me too. Tianhua, you have to settle my matter too. Otherwise, I'll take you down with me. After hearing their words, Shui Zhijing sighed and turned to look at Yi Tianhua. Yi Tianhua, don't you want to think about it? At this point, Shui Zhijing paused for a moment. However, he didn't wait for Yi Tianhua to reply and continued. Yi Tianhua, if you agree, at least it won't cause a fight between our two factions. You have to think carefully. Even though you have more gold coins, you should still be able to think of a way to do it. Yi Tianhua, what do you think? After hearing Shui Zhijing's words, Yi Tianhua sighed. Hall Leader Shui, I really don't have a choice. If I had so much gold coins, why would I not agree? At this point, Yi Tianhua paused for a moment before continuing. Hall Master Shui, if it's 1 million gold coins, I should be able to scrape together that much. However, it's impossible for me to fork out 2,500,000 gold coins. Shui Zhijing, I'll have to trouble you to discuss this with Zhang Chunren. If he agrees, this matter will be settled. What do you think? After hearing Yi Tianhua's words, Shui Zhijing sighed inwardly. He knew that there was no room for discussion. If it was 2 million gold coins, Zhang Chunren might have agreed. However, if it was 1 million gold coins, Shui Zhijing was sure that Zhang Chunren would definitely not agree. However, even if Shui Zhijing knew that Zhang Chunren wouldn't agree, he still had to say it. This was because he didn't want to cause a fight between the two factions and turn a small matter into a big matter. However, just as Shui Zhijing was about to speak, Zhang Chunren sneered. Yi Tianhua, you're dreaming. I'd rather not take 1 million gold coins. Yi Tianhua, do you dare? After hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Yi Tianhua was stunned. Zhang Chunren, what do you mean? Zhang Chunren gritted his teeth and said coldly, Yi Tianhua, I don't want 1 million gold coins. I want revenge. You harmed my son. Then, I also want, after hearing this, Shui Zhijing was shocked and hurriedly stopped him. Vice Hall Leader Zhang, how can you do this? If there's anything, we can discuss it slowly. Please don't do this. Discuss? Zhang Chunren sneered. Hall Leader Shui, with Yi Tianhua's attitude, how can I discuss it? Speaking up to this point, Zhang Chunren paused for a moment. Then, without waiting for Shui Zhijing to reply, he continued. Hall Leader Shui, I want 3 million gold coins, but he only wants to give me 1 million gold coins. Isn't he playing with me? He's already playing with me. How can I discuss it? Hearing this, Shui Zhijing hurriedly waved his hand. Vice Hall Leader Zhang, aren't we discussing it? Why are you so angry? Zhang Chunren took a few deep breaths to calm himself down. Then, he said coldly, Hall Leader Shui, I will never agree to Yi Tianhua's conditions. If he really wants to compensate me, then do as I say. Otherwise, I will never agree. After hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Shui Zhijing frowned. He turned to Yi Tianhua and said with a bitter smile, Yi Tianhua, I think you have to ask for more. Vice Hall Leader Zhang will never agree to 1 million gold coins. After hearing Shui Zhijing's words, Yi Tianhua sighed and said slowly, Hall Leader Shui, 1 million gold coins is not enough even if I add all my assets together. I have to borrow from my friends to get 1 million gold coins. If Zhang Chunren is still not satisfied, Hall Leader Shui, then I really can't do anything. This is already the biggest concession I can make. After hearing Yi Tianhua's words, Zhang Chunren shouted sternly, Hall Leader Shui, Yi Tianhua is not sincere about compensating us. He's just being perfunctory. I think you should stop talking. It's useless. You might even fall into Yi Tianhua's trap. After hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Yi Tianhua was a little annoyed and said angrily, Zhang Chunren, what do you mean? Hall Leader Shui discussed something with me. How could he fall into my trap? You better make it clear. Zhang Chunren sneered and pointed at LV Hushan and Yuan Weiqing. He said loudly, Yi Tianhua, do you still need me to say it? Look at LV Hushan and Yuan Weiqing. Why are they injured? Isn't it because they were negotiating with you? Speaking of this, Zhang Chunren paused and snorted coldly before continuing. Yi Tianhua, you purposely used a method of discussing with us to infuriate us. Then, unknowingly, you took the opportunity to attack us and reduce our strength. Yi Tianhua, when our strength is no longer comparable to yours, I'm afraid that's when you'll attack us, right? You're talking nonsense. After hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Tianhua was furious and said loudly, Zhang Chunren, you're talking nonsense. When did I attack you? If you didn't attack me first, why would I attack you? At this point, Tianhua paused. He turned around and pointed at an Hongda and Du Wudai in the distance before continuing. Zhang Chunren, take a good look. It was because you guys took the opportunity to attack first that my two brothers were injured by you guys. Zhang Chunren, I haven't settled the score with you yet, and now you're talking about us. What do you mean? Who was the one who fell into whose trap? Zhang Chunren, explain it clearly to me. Chapter 708. After hearing Tianhua's words, Zhang Chunren sneered and said, Tianhua, are you blaming us for this? If you had agreed to our conditions earlier, and Hongda and Du Wudai would not have been injured. Tianhua, why don't you think about your own reasons and blame us instead? I really don't know what your intentions are. Tianhua heard this and said angrily, Zhang Chunren, how could I agree to your conditions? Are you blaming me for this? Zhang Chunren nodded. Tianhua, if you hadn't harmed my son with false information, I wouldn't have come looking for trouble with you. Do you think this has nothing to do with you? Tianhua gritted his teeth. Zhang Chunren, you keep saying that I harmed your son, but what evidence do you have? Tianhua paused for a moment, but he did not wait for Zhang Chunren's reply and continued to speak. Zhang Chunren, I admit that we did sell you information about the flaming stones, but what does it have to do with us whether there are snow leopards on Green Tower Mountain or not? Zhang Chunren, even if there are snow leopards on Green Tower Mountain, so what? Do we have an obligation to tell you? Zhang Chunren, you only bought information about the flaming stones from us. You didn't buy information about the dangers around the flaming stones. Do you understand? Something happened to you, and you came looking for trouble with us. I don't understand. What reason do you have to come looking for trouble with us? Tianhua paused for a moment, but he did not wait for Zhang Chunren to answer him. He snorted, turned to look at Yuan Weiqing, and continued. Yuan Weiqing, and you. You saw that I was attacked by the Thunderbolt pills, so you wanted to take the opportunity to sneak an attack on me. What was your intention? If you didn't sneak an attack on me, you wouldn't have been injured. How dare you blame me for something like this? Yuan Weiqing, I really don't know what you're thinking. Let me tell you, Zhang Chunren, I can compensate you if you want, but I have to investigate this matter thoroughly before I can compensate you. Before I investigate thoroughly, don't even think about it. After hearing Tianhua's words, Zhang Chunren was furious and shouted, Tianhua, let me ask you. You said that my son's matter has nothing to do with your South County Shadow Alliance. Don't you think it's ridiculous? Tianhua, I admit that we didn't buy the news of the snow leopard beside the flaming soaring stones. However, if you didn't have ulterior motives, you would definitely have mentioned this to us. Even if you sold us this information, we would never have rejected it. However, you didn't say anything. The people of the South County Shadow Alliance didn't say anything. You didn't even tell me anything about the snow leopard. Tianhua, let me ask you, why didn't you tell us about this? Your South County Shadow Alliance mainly relies on selling information. You sold us the information about the flaming stone for gold coins. If you sold us the information about the snow leopard, would you also get gold coins? However, you didn't want such a good opportunity to earn gold coins. Instead, you chose to hide it and gave up the opportunity to earn gold coins. Tianhua, tell me why? Why did you choose to hide it when you didn't want to earn gold coins? Hearing Zhang Chunren's question, Tianhua was stunned for a moment, and then said loudly, Zhang Chunren, I've already said that I don't know what happened. How would I know? Why is it like this? Zhang Chunren snorted coldly. Tianhua, do you think I'll believe what you say? Speaking of this, Zhang Chunren's tone paused, but then, without waiting for Tianhua to answer his question, he snorted coldly and continued speaking. Tianhua, as the boss of the South County Shadow Alliance, you actually don't know what happened. Do you think I'll believe what you say? Tianhua sighed. Zhang Chunren, whether you believe or not, I really don't know about this matter. Although I'm the boss of the South County Shadow Alliance, I don't have to ask about the truth. Just like this time, I don't know about the flaming stone. It's because of this that I want to go back and investigate. Zhang Chunren snorted and was about to speak when Yuan Weiqing suddenly said loudly, Tianhua, let me ask you, how do you want to solve my problem? Hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Tianhua turned his head and sighed. Yuan Weiqing, I've already said it. If you didn't sneak attack me, how could you be injured? Yuan Weiqing sneered, Tianhua, do you mean that you don't want to care about my problem? Hearing this, Tianhua hesitated for a moment before slowly nodding. Yuan Weiqing, your problem has nothing to do with me. Although you were injured by me, I still won't care. After hearing Tianhua's words, Yuan Weiqing gritted his teeth and suddenly roared. He flicked his left hand slightly, and a thunderbolt ball flew toward Tianhua like lightning. While Tianhua was speaking, he had been paying attention to the movements of these people. When he saw Yuan Weiqing throw the thunderbolt ball at him, he hurriedly stepped aside and his body flashed. The thunderbolt ball brushed past his side and flew far away, smashing into a tree. Boom! The thunderbolt ball smashed into the tree and exploded, causing the tree to shake nonstop. Hearing the buzzing sound from the tree, Tianhua was shocked. He turned his head to look at Yuan Weiqing and shouted sternly, Yuan Weiqing, are you really going to do it? Hearing Tianhua's question, Yuan Weiqing sneered, Tianhua, whether I do it or not depends on you. As long as you agree to my conditions, I naturally won't do it. But if you don't agree to my conditions, then don't blame me for being rude. Tianhua, you have to think carefully about what to do. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Tianhua gritted his teeth but still shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, no matter what, I have already made it very clear. I will not agree to your conditions. Saying this, Tianhua paused for a moment before continuing. Yuan Weiqing, your arm is injured and I am very sympathetic. If you are willing, I can give you 100,000 gold coins to help you. Before Tianhua could finish, Yuan Weiqing's expression changed, and he threw another thunderbolt ball at Tianhua. Before Tianhua could finish speaking, he saw the thunderbolt ball flying toward him. He was shocked and hurriedly dodged again. Yuan Weiqing shouted loudly, Tianhua, I will give you one more chance. If you don't agree, I will not just throw the thunderbolt balls in my hand one by one. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Tianhua was shocked. He knew the power of the thunderclap pill very well. Although his martial arts were high, as long as he was hit by the thunderclap pill, he would be seriously injured. He might even be killed by the thunderclap pill. Tianhua gritted his teeth and shouted sternly, Yuan Weiqing, I have already tolerated you for a long time. If you dare to throw thunderbolt balls at me again, don't blame me for being rude. After hearing Tianhua's words, Yuan Weiqing was taken aback and subconsciously took a step back. He then forced a smile and said, Tianhua, don't scare me. There are 3 of us here. If you dare to make a move on me, the 3 of us will deal with you together. I think that no matter how strong you are, you won't be able to dodge us, right? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Tianhua was shocked. If the 3 of them threw thunderbolt balls at him together, he might not be able to dodge it. Just as Yuan Weiqing said, if the 3 of them really wanted to attack him, they would definitely not throw thunderbolt balls one by one. When he thought of a sky full of thunderbolt balls being thrown at him, Tianhua only felt a chill in his heart. Even if his martial arts were high, under such circumstances, he did not have much confidence that he would be able to dodge it. Seeing Tianhua's expression change, Yuan Weiqing was emboldened. He shouted sternly, Tianhua, I advise you to quickly agree to our conditions. If you wait until we attack, even if you want to regret it, I'm afraid that you will be severely injured. When that time comes, it will be too late for regrets. Zhang Chunren also said loudly, Tianhua, I know that your martial arts are high, but under the joint attack of the 3 of us, I think that no matter how high your martial arts are, you will not be able to dodge our attacks completely. At this point, Zhang Chunren paused. Then, without waiting for Tianhua to reply, he snorted coldly and continued. Tianhua, let me tell you, if a thunderbolt ball hits you, you are finished. Think carefully. If you do not agree to our conditions, we will really attack. After hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Xue Zhijing sighed. Tianhua, I think you should agree. Otherwise, you will not be able to dodge our thunderbolt balls. After hearing Shui Zhijing's words, Tianhua gritted his teeth. Home Master Shui, are you really not afraid of causing a fight between our two factions? As soon as Tianhua finished speaking, before Shui Zhijing could speak, Zhang Chunren shouted loudly, Tianhua, you don't have to scare us. Let me tell you the truth. Even if we hang you here today, no one will think that we did it. It is absolutely impossible to cause a fight between our two factions. Hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Tianhua sneered. Zhang Chunren, you are thinking too highly of yourself. Many people know that we came to your date this time. As long as something happens to us, the people of the South County Shadow Alliance will definitely know that it was you who did it. Do you think that they will not avenge us? Zhang Chunren sneered and shook his head. Tianhua, don't think too highly of yourself. Although many people know that you're here for my date, how many of them would have thought that with your martial arts skills, you would be killed by the few of us? Yuan Weiqing shouted, Tianhua, don't think so much. Hurry up and agree to our conditions. Otherwise, we will definitely not let you go. Hearing the words of the two, Tianhua snorted coldly. Zhang Chunren, do you think that you can definitely keep me here by using the Thunderbolt pill? Zhang Chunren sneered. Tianhua, you can try. Let's see if you can escape. At this point, Zhang Chunren paused for a moment. However, he did not wait for Tianhua to answer him and continued with a sneer. Tianhua, to tell you the truth, if you dare to run, do you think that we will let Hongda and do Wudai go? At this point, Zhang Chunren seemed to have suddenly realized something and exclaimed, I forgot that there are not only 2 of them. There are also 3 of your disciples. There are a total of 5 of them. Tianhua, if you dare to run, you can try. Let's see how we treat the 5 of them. Hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Tianhua was shocked and shouted sternly, Zhang Chunren, don't tell me that you don't care about the morals of the underworld and attack people who are already seriously injured. Zhang Chunren sneered. Tianhua, you used a scheme to harm my son and the 2 senior craftsmen of our South County Secret Thunder Sect. Do we still need the morals of the underworld to deal with someone like you? Hearing this, Tianhua sighed again. Zhang Chunren, I've already said many times that this matter has nothing to do with me. I definitely didn't use a scheme to harm them. There must be another reason. You have to let me investigate it clearly. Zhang Chunren shook his head. Tianhua, what else is there to investigate? My son has already been harmed by you. What else do you want to investigate? Do you think that I did this? Do you think that I would attack my own son? At this point, Zhang Chunren paused for a moment. However, he did not wait for Tianhua to answer him and continued. Tianhua, let me tell you, this is definitely done by your South County Shadow Alliance. It can't be us. Since your South County Shadow Alliance has made a mistake, you must take responsibility. Otherwise, I won't agree. Yuan Weiqing also said loudly, Vice Hall Master Zhang, you're right. We can't agree. If Tianhua doesn't agree to our conditions, we won't let him leave today. Hearing the words of the 2, Tianhua frowned. He quickly searched in his heart before turning to look at Shui Zhijing and said loudly, Hall Master Shui, since it has already happened, how about this? I can give you some compensation for today's matter, but I really don't have that many gold coins. I can temporarily agree to 1 million gold coins. After this matter is over, I'll give you other compensation. What do you think? No. As soon as Tianhua finished speaking, before Shui Zhijing could speak, Yuan Weiqing shouted sternly, Tianhua, that's absolutely impossible. How can 1 million gold coins be enough? At this point, Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment, but then he continued without waiting for Tianhua to answer him. We'll only let you go if you give us at least 5 million gold coins. Otherwise, we definitely won't agree. Hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Tianhua frowned and turned to look at Yuan Weiqing. He gritted his teeth and said, Yuan Weiqing, what else do you want? 1 million gold coins is already a lot. Are you still not satisfied? Yuan Weiqing shook his head. Chapter 709. Yuan Weiqing laughed coldly. Tianhua, do you really think that 1,000,000 gold coins is enough to satisfy our conditions? Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment, but before Tianhua could reply, he snorted coldly and continued speaking. Tianhua, let me tell you, you're dreaming. 1,000,000 gold coins, but keep it for yourself. Zhang Chunrin said loudly. Tianhua, do you really not want to agree to our conditions? Tianhua sighed. Zhang Chunrin, to be honest, I really sympathize with you for losing your son, and I really want to help you. However, your request is too high. 6,000,000 gold coins, I can't take it out no matter what. Tianhua paused for a moment before continuing. Zhang Chunrin, if it was 1,000,000 gold coins, I would definitely be willing to help you, but 6,000,000 gold coins, I can't do it. Hearing Tianhua's reply, Zhang Chunrin laughed coldly and turned to look at Xue Zhijing, saying loudly, Hall Master Xue. As you can see, Tianhua won't agree to our conditions. Tell me, what should we do? Hearing Zhang Chunrin's words, Xue Zhijing sighed inwardly and turned to Tianhua, asking loudly, Tianhua, we want 6,000,000 gold coins, but you're only offering 1,000,000 gold coins. This difference is really too big. I think, why don't you add a bit more and end this matter? Hearing Xue Zhijing's words, Tianhua paused for a moment before slowly saying, Hall Master Xue, what do you think of 1,500,000 gold coins? After hearing Tianhua's price, Xue Zhijing shook his head. Tianhua, I've already told you that Deputy Head Zhang offered 6,000,000 gold coins. Even if you want to bargain, you shouldn't offer such a low price. Think about it carefully. How many gold coins can you afford? Tianhua clenched his teeth. After thinking for a long time, he said loudly, Home Master Xue, 2,000,000 gold coins is the most I can offer. If you ask for more, I really can't afford it. Hearing Tianhua's answer, Xue Zhijing couldn't help but frown. After pondering for a moment, he said loudly, Tianhua, you don't have to think too much about it. If you agree to the 3,000,000 gold coins, I'll discuss it with Vice Hall Master Zhang. What do you think? After hearing Xue Zhijing's words, Tianhua sighed inwardly. Let alone 3,000,000 gold coins, he couldn't even take out 1,000,000 gold coins. The more gold coins he agreed to, the more he would owe. Although he agreed without hesitation, he was afraid that he would not be so straightforward when it came to returning the favor. Tianhua felt even more unhappy when he thought about how he would have to repay his debt in the future. Thinking of this, Tianhua looked up at Xue Zhijing and said loudly, Xue Zhijing, 3,000,000 gold coins is too much. It's better to reduce it. If I really borrowed so much gold coins, how am I supposed to return it? Before Xue Zhijing could reply, Zhang Chunrin said loudly, Tianhua, if you didn't want to frame us, this wouldn't have happened. Now we're asking you to pay some gold coins to make up for what you did wrong. Tianhua, is there anything wrong with this? Yuan Weiqing also laughed loudly. That's right, Tianhua. Since you did something wrong, you naturally have to pay the price. Tianhua shook his head. If I really did something wrong, even if I had to pay the price, Tianhua would admit it. However, I don't know about this matter. Why should I admit it and pay so many gold coins as compensation? Hearing Tianhua's reply, Zhang Chunrin was enraged. He pointed at Tianhua and shouted, Tianhua, now that things have come to this, you still dare to deny it. It seems that we have to keep you here and interrogate you properly. Yuan Weiqing raised his arm and said loudly, Tianhua, don't tell me that you don't even acknowledge my arm? At this point, Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment. However, he did not wait for Tianhua to reply and continued. Tianhua, there are so many people here. My arm was injured by you. Don't tell me you still dare to deny it? Tianhua shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, I admit that your arm was injured by me. However, don't you know why I hurt you? Yuan Weiqing shook his head. I don't know. I only know that you didn't agree to our Vice Hall Master Zhang's conditions. That's why I attacked you. If you had agreed to Vice Hall Master Zhang's conditions, why would I have attacked you? Tianhua, you can't deny this point, right? Tianhua sighed. Yuan Weiqing, Zhang Chunrin's conditions are so harsh. How could I possibly agree to it? I think that if it were you, You wouldn't agree to it either, right? Yuan Weiqing shook his head and said loudly, "Why wouldn't I agree? If I had done something wrong, I would definitely agree to it." Hearing this, Yi Tianhua was a little annoyed and said loudly, "But what did I do wrong? I don't know anything. Why should I compensate you?" Hearing Yi Tianhua's reply, Zhang Chunren sighed and turned to look at Xue Zhijing. He said slowly, "Hall Master Xue, as you can see, Yi Tianhua refused to agree to our conditions." Hearing this, Xue Zhijing turned to look at Yi Tianhua and asked loudly, "Yi Tianhua, don't tell me you won't even take out 3 million gold coins?" Yi Tianhua smiled bitterly and shook his head. "Hall Master Xue, it's not that I don't want to take it out, but I really can't. 3 million gold coins is such a large sum. How can I take it out?" Zhang Chunren sneered. "Yi Tianhua, since you can't take it out, why don't you agree to my second condition? As long as you take out 500,000 gold coins, wouldn't it be simple?" Hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Yi Tianhua shook his head again. "Zhang Chunren, I won't agree to 5 years of free information because this is not a small matter. If anything goes wrong, how can I face all the brothers of the South County Shadow Alliance?" Hearing Yi Tianhua's answer, Zhang Chunren shouted sternly, "Yi Tianhua, since you know that you have let down all the brothers of the South County Shadow Alliance, why did you do such a thing?" Yuan Weiqing also shouted, "Yi Tianhua, you must take responsibility for what you have done today. Otherwise, we will definitely not let you go." Yi Tianhua sighed and turned to look at Xue Zhijing. He said slowly, "Hall Master Xue, do you really want to cause a fight between our two gangs?" Hearing Yi Tianhua's words, Xue Zhijing was stunned for a moment. Just as he was about to speak, Zhang Chunren said loudly, "Yi Tianhua, let me tell you, even if it causes a fight between the two gangs, it will be because of you. Even if the brothers ask about it, they will hate you." When Yi Tianhua heard this, he shook his head. "Zhang Chunren, how is this related to me? Although we sold you information about the flaming stones, the snow leopard incident was your own fault for not protecting it well. How can you blame us?" Zhang Chunren sneered. "Yi Tianhua, if you didn't do it on purpose, why would we not protect it well? Yi Tianhua, we have many masters in the secret thunder sect of the South County. If we knew that there was a snow leopard beside the flaming stone, why didn't we send masters to protect it? In the end, you deliberately hid it and wanted to harm the secret thunder sect of the South County. At this point, Yi Tianhua, you still dare to say that it has nothing to do with you. Don't you think it's ridiculous?" At this point, Zhang Chunren paused and turned to look at Xue Zhijing before continuing, "Hall Master Xue, I don't think we can negotiate our terms. Please take down Yi Tianhua. Only then will he agree to our terms." After hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Xue Zhijing was in a dilemma. On one side was his Vice Hall Master, and on the other side was the boss of the South County Shadow Alliance. If he agreed to Zhang Chunren's terms, Xue Zhijing was sure that it would cause a fight between the two gangs. However, if he did not agree to Zhang Chunren's terms, Zhang Chunren's words made sense. If what Zhang Chunren said was true, and this matter was deliberately set up by Yi Tianhua, then this matter was quite serious. Yi Tianhua deliberately set up the secret thunder sect of the South County and used a trap to kill 2 of their high-level blacksmiths. Although the secret thunder sect of the South County had lost 2 high-level blacksmiths, it did not affect their strength much. However, if this kind of trap was used again, even if they lost another 2 high-level blacksmiths, it would have a great impact on the strength of the secret thunder sect of the South County. The secret thunder sect of the South County only had a total of 10 high-level blacksmiths. If they lost too many, the secret thunder sect of the South County would not be able to operate anymore. Thinking of this result, Xue Zhijing felt a little uneasy. In fact, he did not believe that Yi Tianhua would do such a thing. However, if what Zhang Chunren said was true, then this matter would be terrible. Once Yi Tianhua went back to hide, they would never be able to find Yi Tianhua again. Most importantly, the secret thunder sect of the South County needed too many ores. It was unrealistic for them to rely on themselves to find them. They could only rely on buying information from the South County Shadow Alliance to support the huge amount of ores they needed. As long as they bought information, it was very likely that they would fall into Yi Tianhua's trap. At that time, wouldn't it be like what Zhang Chunren said, that Yi Tianhua would gradually weaken them? It was precisely because of this reason that even if Xue Zhijing believed that Yi Tianhua would not do such a thing, he had to be on guard. This was because this was an unsolvable problem. The secret Thunder sect of the South County had to buy information from the South County Shadow Alliance. Yi Tianhua also had many opportunities to frame the secret Thunder sect of the South County. According to Zhang Chunren, as long as Yi Tianhua borrowed a large amount of gold coins, Yi Tianhua would not have time to frame the secret Thunder sect of the South County. Zhang Chunren saw that Xue Zhijing did not answer him for a long time, so he quickly said, Master Xue, don't hesitate anymore. Yi Tianhua is obviously playing with us. If we continue to hesitate, Yi Tianhua will take the opportunity to run away. That will be terrible. After hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Xue Zhijing nodded. He raised his head to look at Yi Tianhua and said loudly, Yi Tianhua, you are indeed wrong in this matter. It is because of your fault that Vice Hall Master Zhang's son was killed by the Snow Leopard. The two high-level blacksmiths of the secret Thunder sect of the South County were also killed because of this matter. Yuan Weiqing and LV Hushan were also seriously injured because of this matter. Yi Tianhua, now that things have come to this, I think you should agree to Vice Hall Master Zhang's conditions. With so many grudges, it is impossible to resolve them. At this point, Xue Zhijing paused for a moment, but then he continued without waiting for Yi Tianhua to answer him. Yi Tianhua, I know that we are indeed asking for a lot of gold coins, but as long as you do it sincerely, you can still raise these gold coins. Yi Tianhua, I don't want to cause a fight between the two gangs, but if you don't compensate for what you have done, then I have no choice but to attack you. After hearing Xue Zhijing's words, Yi Tianhua frowned and suddenly sneered, Master Xue, do you think that with just the three of you, you can subdue me? Xue Zhijing shook his head. Yi Tianhua, of course we can't do it with just the three of us, but if we use our Thunderbolt pills, I believe it shouldn't be difficult to keep you here, right? After hearing Xue Zhijing's words, Yi Tianhua shook his head. Master Xue, you underestimate me too much. Even if you have the Thunderbolt pills, do you think you have Sherwin? At this point, Yi Tianhua paused for a moment, but then he continued without waiting for Xue Zhijing to answer him. Xue Zhijing, that's impossible. No matter how powerful the Thunderbolt pills are, they're still mere worldly possessions. If you want to rely on these things to fight me, I'm afraid it's not enough. After hearing Yi Tianhua's words, Zhang Chunren sneered. Yi Tianhua, won't you know if our Thunderbolt pills are effective after you try? Yuan Weiqing also shouted loudly. Yi Tianhua, since you don't believe in the power of our Thunderbolt pills, then I'll show you. As he spoke, Yuan Weiqing suddenly waved his left hand and two Thunderbolt pills flew towards Yi Tianhua, one on the left and one on the right. Yi Tianhua was shocked when he saw Yuan Weiqing suddenly make a move. He also saw that the two Thunderclap pills had already sealed off the left and right sides. He had no choice but to stomp on the ground with both feet. His whole body bounced up into the air, and with a flip, he jumped to the side. The two Thunderbolt pills flew past Yi Tianhua's feet and hit a nearby tree, instantly exploding. Feeling the hot air rushing towards him, Yi Tianhua was even more shocked. This was only two Thunderbolt pills sent out at the same time, and it was already very dangerous. If there were more, it would seal off his left and right sides. Then it would be difficult for him to dodge. Thinking of this, Yi Tianhua's forehead gradually broke out in cold sweat. His entire body became nervous as he tried to think of a way to deal with the situation in front of him. Looking at Yi Tianhua's nervous appearance, Zhang Chunren suddenly sneered. Yi Tianhua, I see that you are very nervous. Are you afraid of two Thunderbolt pills sent out at the same time? At this point, Zhang Chunren paused for a moment, but then he continued without waiting for Yi Tianhua to reply. Chapter 710. Zhang Chunren sneered. Yi Tianhua, since you're afraid of two Thunderbolt pills, What do you think will happen if we throw 10 thunderbolt pills at the same time? Hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Tianhua was shocked. Cold sweat began to form on his forehead. Zhang Chunren, are you really going to attack me? Zhang Chunren sneered. Tianhua, do you think we're joking? Let me tell you, our patience is limited. If you don't agree to our terms, we'll really attack you. When that happens, it'll be too late for regrets. Yuan Weiqing shouted, Tianhua, if you know what's good for you, you'd better agree to our terms. If you don't, the next time we throw thunderbolt pills, it won't just be 1 or 2. It'll be 10 or 20 thunderbolt pills. At this point, Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment before continuing. Tianhua, I admit that you are skilled in martial arts, but I don't believe that you can escape from a sky full of thunderbolts. Xue Zhijing sighed. Tianhua, I think you should agree to our terms. Although your martial arts are strong, I'm afraid you're no match for us. To avoid unnecessary injuries, you should agree. Hearing Xue Zhijing's words, Tianhua sneered. Hall Master Xue, is this your answer? Tianhua paused for a moment, but he did not wait for Xue Zhijing's reply and continued to speak. Hall Master Xue, if you're not afraid of causing a fight between the two gangs, then let me tell you, don't blame me for going all out. If there's any damage, don't blame me for being heavy-handed. This is all because of you. Hearing Tianhua's words, Xue Zhijing was shocked. Although Tianhua's tone was calm, he could tell that Tianhua was not going to hold back this time. If they really dared to attack Tianhua this time, with Tianhua's martial arts, even if the three of them had the thunderclap pills, it would not be easy to escape unscathed with Tianhua's full strength. Perhaps Yuan Weiqing's end would be their end. Seeing that Xue Zhijing was hesitating again, Zhang Chunren hurriedly said, Tianhua, you still dare to threaten us? Let me tell you, no one can escape from the thunderbolt pills of our South County secret thunder sect, not even you. After hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Tianhua sneered. Zhang Chunren, since you were so confident, then let's give it a try. Let's see if your thunderbolt ball is faster or if my sword is faster. Xue Zhijing said slowly. Tianhua, do you really want to see a fight between our two sects? Tianhua shook his head. Hall Master Xue, I'm not the one who wants to cause a war between the two gangs. It's you. Tianhua paused for a moment before continuing. Hall Master Xue, if you didn't attack me, why would I attack you? If our two sects really start a fight, the responsibility will be on your side. It has nothing to do with me. Hearing Tianhua's words, Zhang Chunren roared. Tianhua, don't quibble. If you are willing to agree to our conditions, why would we attack you? Tianhua, let me tell you, even if it causes a fight between our two sects, it's all because you don't want to solve our problem. Yuan Weiqing sneered. Tianhua, you injure my arm, but you refuse to compensate me. I believe that no matter how you explain this, you will be the unreasonable party. If our two sects really start a fight, it will be your responsibility. It's because you refused to compensate us that the fight started. Hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Tianhua immediately flew into a rage. He pointed at Yuan Weiqing and shouted sternly. Yuan Weiqing, I've already said that the injury on your arm was caused by your sneak attack on me. I unintentionally injured you. Don't tell me that I'm also responsible for this. Yuan Weiqing sneered. Tianhua, let me ask you, did you injure my arm? Tianhua gritted his teeth and said, I admit that I did injure your arm, but that's because you attacked me first. That's why I was able to injure you. Tianhua paused for a moment, but he didn't wait for Yuan Weiqing to answer him and continued. Yuan Weiqing, you have to be reasonable. Are you saying that I can't retaliate when you attacked me? If I didn't retaliate, I would be the one injured. At that time, will you compensate me? Hearing Tianhua's words, Yuan Weiqing was stunned for a moment. He then said loudly, Tianhua, let me tell you, when I attacked you just now, even if you didn't retaliate, I definitely wouldn't have hurt you. My goal was only to restrain you. Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment before continuing, Tianhua, if you had agreed to Vice Hall Master Zhang's conditions earlier, why would I have attacked you? The reason why I attacked you was because I just said that if I really wanted to hurt you, I wouldn't have attacked you. All I had to do was continue to throw thunderbolt balls at you. Oomph. Etienne, do you have the confidence to dodge my thunderbolt balls? Hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Etienne frowned and sneered. Yuan Weiqing, do you think that I'll believe your words? Etienne paused for a moment, but he didn't wait for Yuan Weiqing to answer him and continued. Yuan Weiqing, when you attacked me, I'm sure you know better than anyone else where your knife was aimed at, right? If I didn't feel that danger was approaching, why would I attack you and injure you? Yuan Weiqing, you can't deny this. If I didn't retaliate, I'm afraid that I would be dead by now. At that time, will you compensate me for injuring me? Yes. Hearing Etienne's words, Yuan Weiqing immediately replied loudly. Etienne, if I had injured you, I would definitely compensate you. What you said just now was wrong. When I attacked you, I did aim at your vitals. However, don't you think that it was a feint? If I had attacked your vitals, would you have cared? Who knows, you might have taken advantage of this to injure me even more. Nonsense. Hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Etienne was instantly enraged and shouted sternly. Yuan Weiqing, you have to be responsible for your words. When you attacked my vitals just now, it was definitely not a feint. Although we were in the smoke and my back was facing you, your knife couldn't have hidden from me. I'm sure that if I didn't retaliate with all my might, I would have been seriously injured. Yuan Weiqing, why are you so ruthless towards me? What are your intentions? Yuan Weiqing gritted his teeth and said loudly, Etienne, you said it yourself. We were in the smoke and your back was facing me. How can you be sure that I attacked your vitals with all my might? Hearing this, Etienne sighed. If I can't even feel this, then all my years of martial arts training would have been in vain. Yuan Weiqing, I can tell you for sure that you attacked me with all your might and attacked my vitals. I believe that if I didn't dodge or retaliate with that attack of yours, even if it didn't kill me, it would have crippled me. At this point, Etienne paused for a moment. But immediately after, without waiting for Yuan Weiqing to reply, he sighed again and said slowly, in the pugilistic world, even if you meet someone who has a grudge against you, you might not be so ruthless. But you, before the situation is clear, you attacked me so viciously. Etienne turned to look at Shui Zhijing and said loudly, Home Master Shui, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have crippled Yuan Weiqing with that attack. I would have ended his life. After hearing Etienne's words, Yuan Weiqing didn't wait for Shui Zhijing to reply and said loudly, Etienne, don't make it sound so nice. Even if your martial arts are strong, could you have killed me in that state? At this point, Yuan Weiqing paused and snorted coldly before continuing, Etienne, don't try to lie to us. I can tell you that the sword you used to injure me was your full strength. As for what you said about showing mercy, it would be strange if I believed you. Hearing that Yuan Weiqing didn't believe him, Etienne laughed coldly and said slowly, Yuan Weiqing, since you don't believe me, it's fine. I can let you try once, and you'll believe me. At this point, Etienne paused for a moment before continuing, however, I'm afraid you'll be hurt even more and you might regret it. Hearing Etienne threaten Yuan Weiqing, Zhang Chunren suddenly said loudly, Etienne, do you think you're so great just because you have high martial arts? Let me tell you, if Yuan Weiqing hadn't attacked you just now, and all of us attacked you with the Thunderbolt pills, you would have been killed by us. Etienne, think about it carefully. Could you have dodged our attacks in that state? After hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Etienne was stunned. Although they were in the smoke just now, he knew that after Yuan Weiqing attacked him, Zhang Chunren stopped throwing Thunderbolt pills. In fact, it was really dangerous just now. Etienne was suddenly attacked by the Thunderbolt ball, and before he could react, he was already surrounded by the Thunderbolt ball. If it was like before, Zhang Chunren and the others would throw a few Thunderbolt balls at once, then Etienne couldn't guarantee that he would be able to dodge the Thunderbolt ball's attack. If too many Thunderbolt pills were thrown out and formed a net of attacks, then Etienne would have nowhere to hide and would definitely be hit by the Thunderbolt pills. If he was hit by one Thunderbolt pill, with Etienne's martial arts, he should be able to hold on for a while. However, if he was hit by 2 thunderbolt pills, it would be impossible for him to continue fighting. It was because of this that Yi Tianhua wanted to help Yuan Weiqing when he was injured and help him stand up again. It didn't matter if Yuan Weiqing did it intentionally or not, he still saved him once. With Yi Tianhua's temper, he would definitely repay any kindness. Seeing that Yi Tianhua didn't answer his question, Zhang Chunren sneered. Yi Tianhua, I was right. If we weren't afraid of hurting Yuan Weiqing just now, you would have been killed by us. Shouldn't you be thanking Yuan Weiqing? After hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Yuan Weiqing hurriedly shouted, Yi Tianhua, Vice Hall Leader Zhang is right. If it wasn't for me, you would have been blown to pieces by the thunderbolt pills. How could you still be standing here talking to us? At this point, Yuan Weiqing's tone paused. He raised his injured arm and said loudly, Yi Tianhua, I saved you. Not only are you not grateful, you even want to attack me again. Yi Tianhua, do you still have a conscience? Is this how you treat your savior? After hearing the two's words, Yi Tianhua calmed himself down and said slowly, Yuan Weiqing, because you unintentionally saved me this time, I want to give you 100,000 gold coins to help you stand up again. At this point, Yi Tianhua paused and sneered before continuing. If it wasn't for this reason, Yuan Weiqing, do you think I have so much gold coins that I don't know where to spend them? After hearing Yi Tianhua's words, Yuan Weiqing shook his head and sneered. Yi Tianhua, you heard it just now. If you want me to cultivate again, 100,000 gold coins is useless. If you really want to repay me, then give me 3 million gold coins as repayment for saving your life. What do you think? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Yi Tianhua shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, although you indirectly saved me once, I only have 100,000 gold coins. This is already the best I can do. As for the 3 million gold coins you mentioned. At this point, Yi Tianhua sighed. Yuan Weiqing, where am I going to find 3 million gold coins for you? Moreover, although you saved me just now, you still attacked me and wanted to sneak attack me. Giving you 100,000 gold coins is already the best I can do. If you are still not satisfied, then there is nothing I can do. After hearing Yi Tianhua's words, Zhang Chunren didn't wait for Yuan Weiqing to speak and sneered. Yi Tianhua, is this how you treat your savior? Oof. Yi Tianhua, you disappoint me too much. If Yuan Weiqing hadn't blocked in front of me just now, I would have thrown out 5 thunderbolt balls at the same time, and you would definitely not have survived. Yi Tianhua, when you are seriously injured, do you think you can still resist? Yi Tianhua, if you know how to repay kindness, then quickly agree to Yuan Weiqing's conditions and help him stand up again. You, Yi Tianhua, are a kind person. After hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Yi Tianhua sighed. Zhang Chunren, I also want to compensate Yuan Weiqing, but I really don't have 3 million gold coins. What can I do? Chapter 711. Hearing Yi Tianhua's reply, Zhang Chunren laughed coldly. Yi Tianhua, if it wasn't for Yuan Weiqing, you would have been badly injured by our thunderbolt balls. How would you have the chance to bargain with us? Yi Tianhua, you owe Yuan Weiqing a debt of gratitude, yet you don't even think about repaying him. Even though 3 million gold coins is indeed a lot, but compared to you, is 3 million gold coins really a lot? Yi Tianhua shook his head. Zhang Chunren, how can you compare me like this? At this point, Yi Tianhua paused for a moment, but then, without waiting for Zhang Chunren to reply, he continued. Even though Yuan Weiqing saved me, but at the same time, he did launch a sneak attack on me. If I didn't retaliate, I might have been seriously injured by him. If that's the case, Zhang Chunren, let me ask you, should I thank him or hate him? Hearing Yi Tianhua's reply, Zhang Chunren laughed coldly. Yi Tianhua, no matter what Yuan Weiqing did, the end result was that he saved you. This point, no matter what you say, will not change. Yi Tianhua, if you are a hero, then quickly agree to Yuan Weiqing's terms and repay him for saving your life. Yuan Weiqing suddenly said loudly, Yi Tianhua, I admit that I did want to launch a sneak attack on you, But don't forget, if I didn't launch a sneak attack on you and continue to attack you with the Thunderbolt balls, you would definitely have been seriously injured. Etienne, I only launched a sneak attack on you to subdue you, not to injure you. But you retaliated and crippled me. Etienne, even though we are enemies, but no matter what, if it wasn't for me, you would have been subdued long ago. Just because of this point, shouldn't you be grateful to me? Hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Etienne paused for a moment, then nodded and said slowly, Yuan Weiqing, I admit that you are right, but don't forget that when you attacked me, you were aiming for my vitals. If I didn't retaliate with all my might and block your attack, I'm afraid that my fate would be the same as being hit by those Thunderbolt Kings, right? Yuan Weiqing shook his head. Etienne, I've already said that the attack I used on you was just a feint. If you had given up on resisting, I would have stopped there and definitely wouldn't have hurt you. Because of this, when you attacked me, I wasn't prepared. Hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Etienne couldn't help but laugh coldly. Yuan Weiqing, don't you think this is funny? You attacked me because you weren't prepared for my attack. Really funny? Yuan Weiqing's face turned slightly red, and he shouted sternly, Etienne, so what? Anyway, I attacked you just now to subdue you. I definitely didn't want to hurt you. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, before Etienne could say anything, Zhang Chunren laughed coldly and said loudly, Etienne, you heard it, right? Yuan Weiqing didn't want to hurt you. He only wanted to subdue you and then make you agree to my conditions. Don't you understand? At this point, Zhang Chunren paused for a moment, but then, without waiting for Etienne to reply, he suddenly turned around and pointed at Hongda and Du Wudai in the distance, minding his own business, and continued speaking. Etienne, you saw it too. If we really wanted to hurt you, why do we only injure in Hongda and Du Wudai and not cripple them like you did? I believe that under such circumstances, it wouldn't be difficult for us to cripple in Hongda and Du Wudai. It could even be said that it would be an easy task, but we didn't do so because our goal was to make you agree to our conditions. Etienne, what about you? At this point, Zhang Chunren suddenly looked up to the sky and laughed. His laughter was filled with sorrow. After a while, Zhang Chunren lowered his head to look at Etienne and shouted sternly, Etienne, look at what you've done. Although there were some extreme actions in our conversation, you took this opportunity to injure LV Hushan and then cripple Yuan Weiqing. Etienne, don't you know our goal? We only wanted you to agree to our conditions. We didn't want to cause a fight between our two gangs. However, you took advantage of this opportunity to deal a heavy blow to us. You seriously injured LV Hushan and Yuan Weiqing, causing them to lose their ability to fight and weaken our side strength. Etienne, now that things have come to this, I really can't figure out what you want to do. But not only did you not agree to our conditions, you even said that we wanted to cause a fight between the two gangs. What are your intentions? After hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Etienne was a little annoyed and said loudly, Zhang Chunren, according to what you said, even if you attacked me, I couldn't fight back. Zhang Chunren shook his head and said with a cold smile, Etienne, if you agreed to our conditions, why would we attack you? At this point, Zhang Chunren paused for a moment, but then he continued without waiting for Etienne to answer him. Etienne, don't we know that your martial arts are higher than ours? We clearly know that your martial arts are higher than ours, but we still attacked you. Don't you know why? At this point, Zhang Chunren paused for a moment, but then he didn't wait for Etienne to answer him and shouted at the top of his lungs. Etienne, this is for justice. You did something wrong, so you have to pay the price. It is for justice that we attacked you even though we knew that we were not your match. Etienne, why didn't you agree to our conditions? Don't tell me that you shouldn't make up for what you did wrong. Hearing Zhang Chunren shout, Etienne sighed. Zhang Chunren, I sympathize with your situation, and I also want to compensate you, but your conditions are too high. Where am I supposed to find so many gold coins for you? Zhang Chunren, if your conditions weren't high, I would have agreed long ago. Why wait until now? After hearing Etienne's words, Zhang Chunren shook his head with a cold smile. Etienne, You harmed my son, crippled Yuan Weiqing, and seriously injured LV Hushan. Let me ask you, if you only want 100,000 gold coins to solve the problem, would you be willing? At this point, Zhang Chunren paused for a moment, but then he didn't wait for Yi Tianhua to answer him and continued with a cold smile. Yi Tianhua, if you dare to say that you're willing, then I won't say anything else. I won't even take the 100,000 gold coins. What do you think? After hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Yi Tianhua naturally knew that he was really angry and quickly said, Zhang Chunren, I didn't say that I don't care about you. I'm just saying that you let me go back and investigate to see what the problem is so that we can make the corresponding compensation. Is there anything wrong with that? After hearing Yi Tianhua's words, Zhang Chunren sneered. Yi Tianhua, at this point you're still quibbling. The matter is very clear. It was you who did it. Other than you, no one else can do this even if they wanted to. Is this fake? Yi Tianhua shook his head. Zhang Chunren, no matter what you say, I can only tell you that this matter has nothing to do with me. As for whether it has anything to do with the South County Shadow Alliance, I have to go back and investigate. After hearing Yi Tianhua's words, Yuan Weiqing, who was standing at the side, suddenly shouted, Yi Tianhua, such a big thing has happened. Now, do you still want to leave? At this point, Yuan Weiqing's tone paused for a moment, but then he did not wait for Yi Tianhua to answer his words and shouted loudly. Yi Tianhua, don't even think about it. No matter what, if you don't agree to our conditions today, you can forget about leaving. Zhang Chunren sneered. Yi Tianhua, Yuan Weiqing saved your life, but you're not even willing to repay him. This is obvious. What's wrong with you? Even if I had doubts about this matter in the past, through this matter, I can be sure that you did it. Yi Tianhua, even if you want to quibble, we won't believe you anymore. Yi Tianhua gritted his teeth and said angrily, Zhang Chunren, how many times have I told you? This matter has nothing to do with me. If it has something to do with me, I'll definitely compensate you. After hearing Yi Tianhua's words, Zhang Chunren pointed at Yuan Weiqing and said loudly, Yi Tianhua, then let me ask you, did Yuan Weiqing save your life just now? Hearing Zhang Chunren's question, Yi Tianhua paused for a moment, then smiled bitterly and nodded. Zhang Chunren, just now, although Yuan Weiqing was sneak attacking me, he did block your Thunderbolt Ball attack. I won't deny this. At this point, Yi Tianhua paused for a moment, but then, without waiting for Zhang Chunren to reply, he continued. But it's because of this reason that I let bygones be bygones and agreed to give Yuan Weiqing 100,000 gold coins as compensation. What else do you want? Zhang Chunren sneered. Yi Tianhua, Yuan Weiqing suffered such a serious injury, and you only want to give him 100,000 gold coins to settle this matter. Don't you think that's a little too little? After hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Yi Tianhua sneered. Zhang Chunren, although Yuan Weiqing saved me, he was still sneak attacking me. I'll let bygones be bygones and still want to give him 100,000 gold coins. What else do you want me to do? Zhang Chunren shook his head. Yi Tianhua, if you only want to take out 100,000 gold coins, then I advise you to forget about it. Do you think that 100,000 gold coins is enough to compensate Yuan Weiqing? Yuan Weiqing has already been crippled by you. If he wants to stand up again and recover his martial arts, he won't be able to recover without a large amount of elixirs. 100,000 gold coins can't even buy a single elixir. What's the use of it? Yi Tianhua shook his head. Zhang Chunren, if Yuan Weiqing didn't sneak attack me, how would he be injured? In the end, it's all his fault that he was injured by me because he had bad intentions. If Yuan Weiqing wants to stand up again, it will all depend on my help. Let me tell you, that's impossible. I don't have the obligation to help him. I didn't attack him first. I was only defending myself. Zhang Chunren, even if I don't compensate him at all, I won't feel guilty. Do you understand? Zhang Chunren shook his head and sneered. Yi Tianhua, is this how you treat your benefactor? Yi Tianhua turned his head to look at Yuan Weiqing and asked in a deep voice, Yuan Weiqing, why did you sneak attack me? Hearing Yi Tianhua's question, Yuan Weiqing was stunned for a moment. Then he said loudly, Yi Tianhua, why would I sneak attack you? I just said that I saw that you didn't agree to Vice Hall Leader Zhang's conditions. In a moment of crisis, I wanted to go up and restrain you. But you dealt a heavy blow to me and injured my arm. Etienne, I really regret it. If I didn't attack you, you would have been blown up by the thunderbolt ball. I wouldn't have ended up like this. Hearing this, Etienne shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, you're lying. If you just wanted to restrain me, you didn't have to attack my vitals. Since you attacked my vitals, you must have wanted to injure me severely. Yuan Weiqing, am I right? After hearing Etienne's words, Yuan Weiqing was stunned for a moment. Then he shook his head and said loudly, Etienne, I just said that the attack I used on you was just a feint. If you didn't resist, my attack wouldn't have hurt you. Etienne shook his head. That's not right. Yuan Weiqing, you used all your strength in that attack. If you wanted to change your attack, even I wouldn't be able to change my attack, let alone you. Yuan Weiqing, you're lying. Your real aim was to hurt me. After hearing Etienne's words, Yuan Weiqing immediately shook his head. No, Etienne, you're wrong. I didn't use all my strength. If I want to change my attack, I could have done it. At this point, Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment. Then, without waiting for Etienne to reply, he continued speaking. Etienne, your back was facing me. Naturally, you couldn't see my attack. Although you could feel that my attack was aimed at your vitals, you definitely couldn't feel the strength of my attack. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Etienne suddenly laughed coldly. Yuan Weiqing, you can't feel the strength of your attack. Do you think I can't hear it? At this point, Etienne paused and snorted coldly before continuing. Yuan Weiqing, let me tell you. The moment you rushed into the smoke, I could feel that you used all your strength. Otherwise, with your martial arts, you wouldn't have been able to achieve that kind of strength. Yuan Weiqing, at this point, I advise you not to quibble. No matter what, you were the one who attacked me first. That's why I was forced to retaliate. Yuan Weiqing, in this situation, do you still expect me to compensate you? After hearing Etienne's words, Yuan Weiqing was stunned again. Zhang Chunren suddenly shouted from the side. Etienne, let me tell you, if Yuan Weiqing didn't attack just now, you would have been hit by our thunderbolt balls. How could we allow you to spout nonsense here? Chapter 712. After hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Etienne laughed coldly. Zhang Chunren, are you saying that I should thank Yuan Weiqing for sneaking up on me? Zhang Chunren nodded. Yuan Weiqing may have sneaked up on you, but you weren't injured. But if he hadn't, you would definitely have been injured by the thunderbolt pill. Etienne, shouldn't you be thanking Yuan Weiqing for this? After hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Etienne couldn't help but laugh. Zhang Chunren, according to you, not only should I not hate Yuan Weiqing, but I should also be grateful to him. I even have to compensate him with 3 million gold coins? Zhang Chunren nodded. That's right. Even if Yuan Weiqing sneaked up on you, he would at most have injured you. But if you were hit by the thunderbolt pill, I'm afraid it wouldn't be as simple as just being injured. You might even be killed by the thunderbolt pill. So, Etienne, you should compensate Yuan Weiqing to express your gratitude. Etienne laughed coldly. Zhang Chunren, just because Yuan Weiqing tried to sneak up on me, I have to give him 3 million gold coins to repay him? At this point, Etienne paused for a moment. But then, without waiting for Zhang Chunren to reply, he laughed coldly and continued, Stop dreaming. Zhang Chunren, stop dreaming. Yuan Weiqing definitely wants to sneak attack me. He attacked me ruthlessly. I can already feel it through the wind from his saber. I can tell you clearly that if I didn't retaliate, Yuan Weiqing's blade alone would have severely injured me. Also, let me tell you, if Yuan Weiqing didn't sneak up on me, do you really think that I wouldn't have been able to dodge your thunderbolt pill? Hearing Etienne's reply, Zhang Chunren laughed coldly. Etienne, I don't believe that you could dodge the attacks of so many thunderbolt pills with the 3 of us working together. Yuan Weiqing also said loudly, Etienne, no matter how strong an expert is, he won't be able to dodge the attacks of the thunderbolt pill with the 3 of us working together. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Zhang Chunren nodded in satisfaction and said loudly, Etienne, Let me tell you, it is possible for you to escape from the three of us. If Yuan Weiqing hadn't ambushed you just now, and we were afraid of injuring you, I'm afraid we would have attacked you with dozens of thunderclap pills. At that time, under the inescapable net of the thunderclap pills, unless you can fly, you definitely won't be able to escape the attack of the thunderclap pills. After hearing Zhang Chunrin's words, Yi Tianhua was secretly shocked. If Zhang Chunrin and the other two could throw out dozens of thunderbolt pills at the same time and form an inescapable net in the air, it would really be impossible for him to dodge the thunderbolt pills. Seeing that Yi Tianhua's expression had become somewhat unsightly, Zhang Chunrin felt quite pleased and said loudly, Yi Tianhua, the reason why we haven't attacked you yet is because we don't want to cause a fight between our two factions. Don't you understand? Xue Zhizheng, who had been silent all this time, sighed at this time and said loudly, Yi Tianhua, you should agree to their conditions. If the three of us really attacked you with our full strength, no matter how high your martial arts are, I'm afraid you won't be able to dodge our attacks. At that time, if you're injured by the thunderclap pills, it might immediately cause a fight between our two factions. At that time, it will be too late for regrets. After hearing Xue Zhizheng's words, Yi Tianhua sighed and said slowly, Home Master Xue, it's not that I don't want to agree to your conditions, but Zhang Chunrin's conditions are too high. How can I agree? Hearing Yi Tianhua's answer, Xue Zhizheng sighed in his heart. Not to mention Yi Tianhua. He believed that no matter who it was, it wouldn't be easy for them to take out 6 million gold coins. Thinking of this, Xue Zhizheng turned to look at Zhang Chunrin. Just as he was about to speak, Zhang Chunrin laughed coldly and said, Home Master Xue, don't tell me you still believe Yi Tianhua's words? At this point, Zhang Chunrin paused for a moment, but immediately after, he didn't wait for Xue Zhizheng to reply and continued. Home Master Xue, Yi Tianhua doesn't really want to agree to our conditions. Don't you understand? Even if I reduce the amount of gold coins, Yi Tianhua still won't agree. Because his true goal isn't to agree to our conditions, but to take advantage of the situation to anger us. Then, he will secretly attack and weaken our strength when we are unprepared. Hall Master Xue, you don't need to persuade him anymore. Hurry up and prepare for battle. After hearing Zhang Chunrin's words, Xue Zhizheng turned to look at Yi Tianhua and said with a bitter smile, Yi Tianhua, tell me, how many gold coins will it take for you to agree to our conditions? Hearing Xue Zhizheng's words, Yi Tianhua was stunned for a moment. After thinking carefully for a moment, he gritted his teeth and said, Home Master Xue, if Zhang Chunrin is willing, I am willing to take out 3 million gold coins. At this point, Yi Tianhua paused and added, Home Master Xue, my 3 million gold coins aren't just for Zhang Chunrin, but for the two of them. As for how they will split it, I don't want to ask. What do you think? Hearing Yi Tianhua's reply, Xue Zhizheng hurriedly turned to look at Zhang Chunrin. Zhang Chunrin laughed coldly and turned to look at Xue Zhizheng, saying in a low voice, Home Master Xue, don't believe his words. Yuan Weiqing and I asked for a total of 6 million gold coins, but he only gave us 3 million gold coins. The conditions are too different for what we asked for. We can't agree. Hearing Zhang Chunrin's words, Xue Zhizheng frowned and said in a low voice, Vice Master Zhang, I think this is already Yi Tianhua's limit. If we ask for more, I'm afraid he won't agree. Hearing Xue Zhizheng's words, Zhang Chunrin suddenly sighed and said slowly, Xue Zhizheng, you also know about Yuan Weiqing's situation. Can we just watch Yuan Weiqing continue to be dispirited? Yuan Weiqing's arm is already crippled. Logically speaking, we have the responsibility to help him stand up again. But you also heard what I said just now. If we want Yuan Weiqing to stand up again, we will need a large amount of elixirs and a brilliant sword manual. At this point, Zhang Chunrin paused for a moment. But then, without waiting for Xue Zhizheng to reply, he continued, Halt, Master Xue, where will these elixirs come from? Where will the brilliant sword manual come from? Won't these all cost gold coins? How many gold coins will a precious elixir cost? I'm afraid that 100,000 gold coins won't be enough. If Yuan Weiqing wants to stand up again, will a precious elixir be enough? No, far from enough. If we want Yuan Weiqing to stand up again and become a character like the one-armed saber king, 1 or 2 precious elixirs are far from enough. We need a large amount of elixirs. Halt, Master Shui. With so many elixirs, how many gold coins will we need to buy them all? Also, a brilliant sword manual. Of course, an ordinary sword manual won't do. We need the best sword manual to help Yuan Weiqing stand up again. However, was the best saber art so easy to obtain? Impossible. If it was really that easy to obtain a high-energy saber, then there would be experts everywhere. If we want to obtain a brilliant sword manual, gold coins won't be enough. We also need an opportunity. In other words, even if someone sells us a brilliant sword manual, Hall Master Shui, how many gold coins do you think we should spend to buy a brilliant sword manual? Speaking of this, Zhang Chunren paused before continuing, Hall Master Shui, I've already calculated just now. I asked Tianhua for 3 million gold coins. I'm afraid it's only enough to buy spiritual herbs. As for the gold coins to buy the saber technique, I'm afraid our secret thunder sect in the South County will pay for him. Hall Master Shui, if Tianhua only gives us 3 million gold coins, how do you think we should split it? Yuan Weiqing needs gold coins to stand up again. Do you want to give him all 3 million gold coins? Hall Master Shui, my son was killed by Tianhua. Don't tell me I can't even get a single gold coin as compensation. Do you think this is fair? It's not that I don't agree to Tianhua's conditions, but we do have our difficulties. With Yuan Weiqing's condition, if we want him to stand up again, Hall Master Shui, 3 million gold coins won't be enough. I'm afraid we'll have to add a lot of gold coins to help him stand up again. If that's the case, what will happen to us? Hall Master Shui, think about it. Tianhua first killed my son and then injured Yuan Weiqing, crippling him. Then he'll pay us 3 million gold coins, and this matter will be settled. But what about us? Yuan Weiqing's 3 million gold coins won't be enough. Even if I give him the 3 million gold coins that Tianhua gave him, we'll have to add at least 2 million gold coins to help him stand up again. Hall Master Shui, in the end, my son was killed by Tianhua, and I'll have to pay 2 million gold coins? After hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Shui Zhijing couldn't help but frown. Zhang Chunren's words were very reasonable. Yuan Weiqing needed too much gold coins. If he wanted to stand up again and practice martial arts like the one-armed sword king, he would need a large amount of investment. According to Zhang Chunren, 3 million gold coins really didn't seem to be enough. If Tianhua had only paid 3 million gold coins, perhaps Zhang Chunren would have really taken out 2 million gold coins to compensate Yuan Weiqing. At the end of the day, Yuan Weiqing was here to help Zhang Chunren. It could be said that Yuan Weiqing was crippled because of Zhang Chunren. Under this kind of situation, if Zhang Chunren didn't care about Yuan Weiqing, then where would he put his face in the future? In other words, if Zhang Chunren was in trouble in the future, who would dare to help him? It was because of this reason that Zhang Chunren had to take care of Yuan Weiqing's matter. Thinking of this, Shui Zhijing somewhat understood Zhang Chunren's difficulties. If Tianhua paid 6 million gold coins, then at least Zhang Chunren wouldn't have to pay any compensation. Shui Zhijing sighed, but didn't know what to say for a moment. Interceding for Tianhua, Zhang Chunren was looking at the compensation. While Zhang Chunren sought justice, Shui Zhijing knew that it was almost impossible for Tianhua to take out 6 million gold coins. Thinking left and right, Shui Zhijing suddenly fell into a dilemma, not knowing who to help. If he helped Zhang Chunren and got Tianhua to agree to pay 6 million gold coins, Shui Zhijing was most worried that Tianhua wouldn't agree no matter what, causing a fight between the two gangs. This was not a result that Shui Zhijing wanted to see. But if he helped Tianhua, he would be letting Zhang Chunren and Yuan Weiqing down. In the past, there was only Zhang Chunren's problem, so Tianhua would grit his teeth and agree to 3 million gold coins. But who would have thought that Yuan Weiqing's matter would be added to it? Now, Yuan Weiqing was the one who spent the most money. If he wanted to stand up again, he would probably need 4 to 5 million gold coins. Under this kind of situation, who should pay the gold coins. It was unreasonable to let Zhang Chunren pay. Zhang Chunren's son had already been killed by the snow leopard. If he were to pay the gold coins, it would be unreasonable. But if he let Yi Tianhua pay the gold coins, Yi Tianhua would definitely not be willing, because Yuan Weiqing was injured by Yi Tianhua when he ambushed him. In this situation, even if Yi Tianhua didn't pay a single gold coin, Xue Zhijing didn't think it was unreasonable. If Yi Tianhua didn't pay the gold coins, then Zhang Chunren would take the gold coins. Xue Zhijing felt a headache coming on. There was only one way to solve this problem. That was to ignore Yuan Weiqing. As long as there was no big spender, Yi Tianhua could compensate Zhang Chunren for his loss by paying 3 million gold coins. This matter would be over. The problem was, could he really ignore Yuan Weiqing? Yuan Weiqing had come to help Zhang Chunren and had been speaking up for Zhang Chunren. In the end, he was crippled by Yi Tianhua. Then, no one cared about him. Xue Zhijing blushed when he thought about this. He definitely couldn't ignore Yuan Weiqing. Thinking about how Yuan Weiqing was a big spender, Xue Zhijing suddenly had an idea. If Yuan Weiqing didn't cultivate martial arts again and just became an ordinary person, then he wouldn't have to waste so many gold coins. Thinking of this, Xue Zhijing's mind suddenly became active. In the future, even if Yuan Weiqing didn't cultivate, he believed that with the secret Thunder sect in the South County taking care of him, he wouldn't suffer. Xue Zhijing looked up at Zhang Chunren and hesitated for a moment before speaking in a low voice. Vice Hall Master Zhang, the most expensive thing now is Yuan Weiqing's arm. If you don't let Yuan Weiqing cultivate martial arts, then wouldn't you save a lot of gold coins? Yi Tianhua's compensation of 3 million gold coins, isn't that enough? Hearing Xue Zhijing's suggestion, Zhang Chunren was stunned for a moment. Then he suddenly sneered, Hall Master Xue, Yuan Weiqing came to help me. Now that his arm is injured, you want me to ignore him? Speaking of this, Zhang Chunren paused for a moment before continuing, Hall Master Xue, if I don't care about Yuan Weiqing, how can I live in the future? At that time, everyone will know that I, Zhang Chunren, am a disloyal person. If I have any trouble in the future, Hall Master Xue, do you think anyone will dare to help me? After hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Xue Zhijing sighed, but he still forced a smile. Vice Hall Master Zhang, let's talk nicely. Chapter 7:13. After hearing Xue Zhijing's words, Zhang Chunren shook his head. Hall Master Xue, what do you think I should do? If I don't ask Yi Tianhua for the gold coins, am I supposed to take them myself? Hall Master Xue, my son has already been killed by the snow leopard, and you still want me to take out a few million gold coins? Do you think this is reasonable? Zhang Chunren paused for a moment, but he didn't wait for Xue Zhijing's reply and continued to speak. Furthermore, Yuan Weiqing's matter has nothing to do with me. His arm was injured by Yi Tianhua. Does that mean Yi Tianhua doesn't have to take responsibility? Hall Master Xue, now that Yuan Weiqing's arm has been crippled, what we should think of now is how to get Yi Tianhua to take out the gold coins and let Yuan Weiqing stand up again. After hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Xue Zhijing nodded. Although he admitted that Zhang Chunren was right, there were too many misunderstandings in this matter. Just like what Yi Tianhua said, if Yuan Weiqing hadn't ambushed Yi Tianhua wouldn't have been able to injure his arm. According to this logic, Yi Tianhua was right because he was retaliating. If he hadn't injured Yuan Weiqing, he would have been injured. Hence, Yi Tianhua was right to retaliate. However, according to Zhang Chunren's logic, Yi Tianhua was wrong again. Firstly, they had to investigate the start of this matter. Zhang Chunren's son had been killed by the snow leopard, but Yi Tianhua didn't resolve this matter. It was because Yi Tianhua didn't resolve this matter that Yuan Weiqing attacked Yi Tianhua out of anger. According to this logic, Yi Tianhua seemed to be in the wrong again, because if he had agreed to Zhang Chunren's conditions, Yuan Weiqing wouldn't have attacked him. Therefore, this matter was really difficult to solve because there was a cause and effect for everything that was right and wrong. Everyone had their own reasons, and it was the kind that really made sense. Xue Zhijing thought for a moment before looking at Zhang Chunren and saying slowly, Zhang Chunren, the biggest problem is to let Yuan Weiqing stand up again. Xue Zhijing paused for a moment before continuing without waiting for Zhang Chunren's reply. Zhang Chunren, this is what I think. We can find the best doctor to treat Yuan Weiqing and let him be the protector of the secret Thunder sect in South County. We can take care of him in many places. As for the plan to make him stand up again, the cost is too high. Do you think we can put on hold? What's wrong with letting Yuan Weiqing live like an ordinary person? After hearing Xue Zhijing's words, Zhang Chunren couldn't help but frown. He coldly said, Hall Master Xue, I just said that Yuan Weiqing suffered such a serious injury because of me. Can I just ignore him? Hall Master Xue, Yi Tianhua must take care of this matter. We must also let Yuan Weiqing stand up again. Only then can we be worthy of Yuan Weiqing. After hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Xue Zhijing shook his head with a wry smile. Zhang Chunren, I know you have good intentions, but to let Yuan Weiqing stand up again, it will cost too much gold coins. Even our secret Thunder sect might not be able to bear it, let alone Yi Tianhua. Zhang Chunren shook his head. Hall Master Xue, we can't interfere in this matter. Since Yi Tianhua injured Yuan Weiqing, he has to take responsibility. Otherwise, we won't let him go. Zhang Chunren paused and turned to look at Xue Zhijing before continuing, Hall Master Xue, don't tell me you want to help Yi Tianhua. Hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Xue Zhijing was shocked and hurriedly waved his hand. Zhang Chunren, how can you say that? Yuan Weiqing is the protector of the secret Thunder sect in the South region. I will naturally side with him. How can I side with Yi Tianhua? Hearing Xue Zhijing's answer, Zhang Chunren nodded and slowly said, Hall Master Xue, now Yi Tianhua is our enemy. We can only deal with Yi Tianhua if we work together. Xue Zhijing frowned when he heard this. Vice Master Zhang, is my suggestion not good? Xue Zhijing paused for a moment, but then he didn't wait for Zhang Chunren to answer him and continued. If Yuan Weiqing was an ordinary person, we wouldn't need this large sum of gold coins. I believe that without this sum of gold coins, the problem between us and Yi Tianhua should be solved smoothly. Isn't that good? Hearing Xue Zhijing's answer, Zhang Chunren shook his head. Yuan Weiqing suffered such a serious injury because of me. Hall Master Xue, I really can't bear to leave Yuan Weiqing alone. Xue Zhijing smiled bitterly and shook his head. Vice Hall Master Zhang, this isn't a matter of whether you can bear it or not. It's just that if we want Yuan Weiqing to stand up again, it will cost too much. We really can't afford it. Zhang Chunren smiled coldly and shook his head. Hall Master Xue, why should we bear it ourselves? Yuan Weiqing was injured by Yi Tianhua, so he should be responsible. Hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Xue Zhijing sighed. Vice Hall Master Zhang, now that Yi Tianhua is willing to take out 3 million gold coins, it should be his limit. I'm afraid it's impossible for him to take out more gold coins. Zhang Chunren turned to look at Xue Zhijing and said in a low voice, Hall Master Xue, do you think that with the three of us, we won't be able to subdue Yi Tianhua? Hearing Zhang Chunren's question, Xue Zhijing shook his head. Vice Hall Master Zhang, that's hard to say. Although we have the Thunderbolt Pill, Yi Tianhua's martial arts are too strong. I'm afraid that the Thunderbolt Pill alone won't be enough. Xue Zhijing paused for a moment, but then he continued without waiting for Zhang Chunren to reply. Vice Hall Master Zhang, if we can't subdue Yi Tianhua, then with Yi Tianhua's martial arts, we'll be the ones at a disadvantage. Hearing Xue Zhijing's words, Zhang Chunren laughed coldly and shook his head. Hall Master Xue, that's impossible. No matter how strong Yi Tianhua's martial arts are, with the three of us working together, he won't be able to escape our tight encirclement. Xue Zhijing sighed. So what? Even if we injure Yi Tianhua, if Yi Tianhua doesn't agree to our terms, then not only will we not be able to get what we want, we'll even cause a fight between the two blocks. When that happens, our gains won't make up for our losses. Hearing Xue Zhijing's words, Zhang Chunren laughed coldly. Hall Master Xue, As long as we capture Tianhua, I don't believe that he won't agree to our terms. Hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Shui Zhijing was shocked. He asked in a trembling voice, Vice Hall Master Zhang, are you planning to use your methods on Tianhua? Zhang Chunren laughed coldly and nodded. That's right. I don't believe that Tianhua won't agree to our terms under our methods. Hearing these words, Shui Zhijing's forehead broke out in cold sweat. He quickly said, No, we definitely can't do that. At this point, Shui Zhijing paused for a moment and panted nervously. However, he did not wait for Zhang Chunren to answer his question and continued to speak. If we really want to use our methods on Tianhua, then no matter what the outcome is, I'm afraid that a fight between our two factions will be unavoidable. This definitely can't happen. It's too dangerous. Hearing Shui Zhijing's words, Zhang Chunren sighed and said slowly, Home Master Shui, if we don't do this, do you think that we have any other methods? Shui Zhijing collected his thoughts and frowned as he thought for a moment. He slowly said, In my opinion, we definitely can't carry out Yuan Weiqing's plan to get back on his feet. Otherwise, the cost will be too great, and we won't be able to afford it. If we let Tianhua take this sum of money, I'm sure that he won't be willing. In that case, I think we should forget about Yuan Weiqing's matter. No matter what, he was the one who attacked Tianhua first, and Tianhua was forced to counterattack. In the end, this matter really doesn't belong to Tianhua. If we continue to force this matter, it won't be good for the reputation of our Tanlei sect in the South County. I think this matter should end here. No. As soon as Shui Zhijing finished speaking, Zhang Chunren exclaimed, Hall Master Shui, Yuan Weiqing is a member of our Tanlei sect in the South County. Now, Yuan Weiqing has been injured, but we don't seek justice for him. If this matter spreads, I'm afraid that our Tanlei sect in the South County will lose even more face, right? Shui Zhijing shook his head with a bitter smile. Vice Hall Master Zhang, as long as we take good care of Yuan Weiqing, we won't let him down. There are so many people in this world who are injured, but there is only one-armed Saber King. Why should we let Yuan Weiqing become the second one-armed Saber King? There are so many people who have become ordinary people because of injuries. Even if Yuan Weiqing becomes an ordinary person, with us taking care of him, he will definitely not be wronged. I think even if Yuan Weiqing can't become the second one-armed Saber King, it shouldn't matter, right? After hearing Shui Zhijing's words, Zhang Chunren sighed again. Hall Master Shui, even if we think so, do you think Yuan Weiqing will agree? Speaking of this, Zhang Chunren paused for a moment, but then he continued without waiting for Shui Zhijing to answer him. Hall Master Shui, Yuan Weiqing is a martial arts master. Now that he has become an ordinary person from a martial arts master, do you think he can accept this change? Shui Zhijing sighed and said slowly, Even if he can't accept it, what can we do? If we want him to stand up again, we will have to spend too many gold coins. I think he should also understand this point. Zhang Chunren suddenly sneered, Hall Master Shui, since you say so, then you can go and talk to Yuan Weiqing. See if he will agree to your conditions. After hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Shui Zhijing was stunned for a moment. Then he nodded and turned to walk towards Yuan Weiqing. Seeing Shui Zhijing walking over, Yuan Weiqing was puzzled. When Shui Zhijing came in front of him, he hurriedly asked in a low voice, Hall Master Shui, when do we start? Start. Hearing Yuan Weiqing's question, Shui Zhijing was stunned. He quickly reacted and shook his head. After hesitating for a moment, he slowly said, Yuan Weiqing, about starting, don't be in a hurry. I have some other things to discuss with you. Let's see if you're willing to do so. Hearing Shui Zhijing's question, Yuan Weiqing hurriedly nodded and said in a low voice, Hall Master Shui, if you have something to say, just say it. I am listening. Shui Zhijing glanced at Yuan Weiqing's injured arm, sighed in his heart, and said slowly, Yuan Weiqing, now that your arm is injured, it is impossible for you to recover your martial arts. In the future, the Secret Thunder Sect in the South region can take care of your daily life and will not let you suffer any grievances. Moreover, you can also be the protector of the Secret Thunder Sect in the South region and manage some of the sect's affairs. Yuan Weiqing, what do you think? Yuan Weiqing looked at Xue Zhijing with some confusion and nodded. Hall Master Xue, I am very happy and grateful that you can say so. Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing's tone paused for a moment before he continued. When I stand up again, I will definitely repay you well. Hearing Yuan Weiqing's last words, Xue Zhijing was stunned. For a moment, the words that he wanted to say could not be said. Yuan Weiqing saw that Xue Zhijing did not speak and only stared at him blankly. Yuan Weiqing was confused and hurriedly asked, Hall Master Xue, what's wrong? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Xue Zhijing was awakened from his chaotic thoughts. He hurriedly shook his head and said with a bitter smile, I'm fine. Speaking of this, Xue Zhijing's tone paused for a moment, but then, without waiting for Yuan Weiqing to reply, he sighed and continued. Yuan Weiqing, what I mean is that the plan for you to stand up again will be very difficult to carry out. You also saw that Tianhua will not agree to our conditions, but to help you stand up again, we will need at least 4 to 5 million gold coins. How can we take out so much gold coins? Yuan Weiqing, Tianhua agreed to compensate you with 3 million gold coins. Even if you give it all to yourself, I am afraid that this plan will not be completed. Moreover, you also know that Vice Hall Master Zhang's son was killed by the snow leopard. Now that Tianhua has compensated him with 3 million gold coins, how can he give it all to you? No matter what, he has to give Vice Hall Master Zhang a large portion of it. In this way, there will not be much gold coins left from Tianhua's compensation. And with the remaining gold coins, it is almost impossible to complete the plan for you to stand up again. Unless our Secret Thunder sect in the South County takes out so many gold coins for you to stand up again. However, Yuan Weiqing, you are the protector of the Secret Thunder sect in the South County. Naturally, you know that there are too many places in the sect to spend money. If we want to gather so many gold coins, I am afraid that it will be a great loss. If we give you all the gold coins, it will be unfair to the rest of the sect. There will definitely be people gossiping. At that time, what should we do? But if we don't use the gold coins in the sect, it is impossible for us to have so many gold coins by ourselves. Chapter 714. Xue Zhijing sighed. Yuan Weiqing, what I want to say is that we don't have the gold coins to support you in your martial arts practice again. After hearing Xue Zhijing's words, a trace of anger flashed in Yuan Weiqing's eyes. After a long while, he suddenly said loudly, Hall Master Xue, what do you mean by this? How did my arm get injured? Wasn't it for our gang? At this point, Yuan Weiqing's tone paused, but then, without waiting for Xue Zhijing to answer him, he snorted coldly and continued. Hall Master Xue, aren't you afraid of disappointing the brothers in the gang by doing this? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Xue Zhijing also sighed and said apologetically, Yuan Weiqing, I'm really sorry. I know that I'm letting you down by doing this, but the price for you to practice martial arts again is too high. 5 million gold coins. Even if we wanted to take it for you, we wouldn't be able to take out so many gold coins. At this point, Xue Zhijing's tone paused before he continued. Yuan Weiqing, now that things have come to this, we can only do this. However, I can assure you that as long as you are in the Tanlei sect in the South County, we will definitely treat you well and not let you suffer any grievances. Please believe me, I can do what I say. After hearing Xue Zhijing's words, Yuan Weiqing gritted his teeth and raised his injured arm, saying sadly, Hall Master Xue, I was injured for the Tanlei sect, but you treat me like this. You clearly have the chance to let me stand up again, but you gave it up because you don't have the gold coins. Hall Master Xue, are you worthy of me? Xue Zhijing heard this and shook his head with a bitter smile. Yuan Weiqing, to be honest, I also want you to stand up again, but 5 million gold coins is really not a small amount. If we could take it out, everything will be fine, but how can we take out so many gold coins? At this point, Xue Zhijing paused before he continued. Yuan Weiqing, don't worry. You will still be the protector of the Tanlei sect in the South County. I can assure you that although you have lost a lot of your martial arts, as long as I am here, no one will dare to look down on you. You can still live the life you used to live. Isn't that good? After hearing Shui Zhijing's words, Yuan Weiqing said sadly, "Oh, Master Shui, my arm is already like this. How can I live the life I used to?" Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment, but he didn't wait for Shui Zhijing's reply. He let out a bitter laugh and continued to speak. "Oh, Master Shui, in the past, although my martial arts were not very high, in the past, I was able to become the protector of the Tanlei sect in the Tanlei sect in the Tanlei sect in the south. Now that I lose my martial arts, do you think I can still be the protector of the protector's sect in S's too?" After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Shui Zhijing was stunned for a moment. Then he said with a smile, "Yuan Weiqing, what does it matter? With your qualifications, even if you don't have martial arts, you are more than qualified to be the protector of the Tanlei sect in the South County. Yuan Weiqing, don't think so much. As long as you agree to this, I can guarantee you that in the future, if anyone dares to question your identity as a protector in the Tanlei sect in the South County, I will not spare them. Don't worry about this." Hearing Shui Zhijing's guarantee, Yuan Weiqing was not relieved. Instead, his face became even more gloomy. "Oh, Master Shui, I have already said that I can become the protector of the Tanlei sect in the South County because of my own ability. However, if I want to become the protector of the Tanlei sect in the South County in the future, I will need your help. Do you think this is good?" After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Shui Zhijing smiled and shook his head. "Yuan Weiqing, you are thinking too much. In the future, you will be the protector of the Tanlei sect in the South County. As long as I promise you, you will always be the protector of the Tanlei sect in the South County. Don't you understand?" Yuan Weiqing sighed. "Oh, Master Shui, I know your good intentions, but I want to become the protector of the Tanlei sect in the South County with my own ability. I don't want to rely on your help to become the protector of the Tanlei sect in the South County." After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Shui Zhijing also sighed secretly. As long as one was a normal person, who would not have Yuan Weiqing's thoughts? In the eyes of outsiders, becoming a protector with one's own ability and relying on the help of others were two completely different concepts. If someone became a protector with his own ability, others would definitely admire him and look at him in a new light. However, if someone became a protector with the help of others, how could outsiders look up to him? Even his subordinates would look down on him if they knew that he became a protector with the help of others. Shui Zhijing understood Yuan Weiqing's thoughts and wanted to support him. He wanted him to stand up again and become the second one-armed saber king. However, the price of doing so was too high. If you wanted to let Yuan Weiqing stand up again, you would have to invest at least 5 million gold coins. The most important thing was, even if you invested 5 million gold coins, would Yuan Weiqing become the second one-armed saber king? For so many years, there were many reasons why there was only one one-armed saber king in the South County. Many injured people had rich families and could afford to buy many spiritual herbs and find many brilliant saber techniques. However, why was there only one one-armed saber king? This was because if one wanted to become the second one-armed saber king, one couldn't just rely on spiritual herbs. Even if one had a brilliant saber technique, it wouldn't be enough. Because there was another reason, and that was the talent for martial arts. If a person's talent for martial arts wasn't enough, then even if there were many spiritual herbs and brilliant saber techniques, they wouldn't have too high of an achievement. They definitely wouldn't be able to reach the realm of the one-armed saber king. The one-armed saber king's talent for martial arts was very high. Coupled with the support of a large number of spiritual herbs and brilliant saber techniques, these three things were indispensable. It was also because there weren't many people who could gather these three things. So for so many years, there was only one one-armed saber king in Nanjing, this kind of hero. There were many people who had rich families and could buy a large number of spiritual herbs. However, they didn't have a brilliant saber technique, or their own talent for martial arts wasn't enough. Therefore, no matter how hard they worked, they absolutely couldn't become the second one-armed saber king. Shui Zhijing had already thought about these problems in his heart. The reason why he wanted to give up on letting Yuan Weiqing stand up again was because he was very clear that it was really difficult to gather these three things. Did Yuan Weiqing have these three things? The spiritual herbs could be bought with gold coins. This wasn't a big problem. The key was, where could he find a brilliant saber technique? A brilliant saber technique wasn't as simple as spiritual herbs. Spiritual herbs could be bought with gold coins. The only difference was that the better the spiritual herbs, the higher the price. However, a brilliant saber technique wasn't like this. Because for those who mastered these brilliant saber techniques, even if you spent gold coins to buy it, would they sell it to you? This was like an ordinary person joining a gang. And this gang had the most brilliant martial arts. However, would the most brilliant martial arts be taught to him? The answer was, of course, impossible. In a gang, there were so many disciples, but how many people could learn the most brilliant martial arts of their own sect? Speaking of which, it could be counted with one's fingers. This was because many gangs' brilliant martial arts were secrets that weren't passed on. Even if it was a disciple of their own sect, before becoming a senior disciple, it was impossible to learn those secret martial arts that weren't passed on. For an ordinary disciple, even if he had a lot of gold coins, could he rely on these gold coins to learn the most brilliant martial arts? The answer was, of course, no. If relying on a lot of gold coins to learn these martial arts, then this gang wouldn't be far from collapse. The thing that could support a gang's prosperity wasn't a lot of gold coins, but brilliant martial arts. Only a sect with a high level of martial arts could be passed down forever. Those high-level martial arts were the basis for these gangs to be able to pass down their legacy. How could it be so easy to obtain these high-level martial arts? Therefore, brilliant martial arts were different from spiritual herbs. Spiritual herbs could be bought with money, but martial arts couldn't. Not only did it require a lot of gold coins, but it also required an opportunity. In other words, it could be said that it required a lot of connections to obtain those brilliant martial arts. The key was, did Yuan Weiqing have a lot of connections? Or did he have such a big opportunity? The answer to this question was no. Yuan Weiqing didn't have a lot of connections, and he also didn't have such good luck to obtain such a big opportunity. If Yuan Weiqing couldn't obtain those brilliant martial arts, even if he took a lot of spiritual herbs, could he become the second one-armed saber king? The answer was still impossible. Without the support of brilliant martial arts, even if he took a lot of spiritual herbs, there wouldn't be much progress in martial arts. More importantly, in addition to spiritual herbs and brilliant martial arts, there was a third condition, and that was talent. Did Yuan Weiqing have super high talent? The answer was still no. If Yuan Weiqing had super high talent, he wouldn't be just a protector of the secret Thunder sect in the South County. Therefore, there were too many things that Yuan Weiqing didn't have. Even if he used those gold coins, the possibility of Yuan Weiqing becoming the second one-armed saber king was definitely not more than 10% in Xue Zhizhing's opinion. Such a low probability, but he had to invest so many gold coins to verify it. As long as he wasn't mentally ill, he believed that he wouldn't be willing to verify it. Of course, there was another possibility. That was Yuan Weiqing was rich and could easily take out 5 million gold coins. Only in this way could he take out these gold coins to verify whether he could become the second one-armed saber king. Other than this possibility, Xue Zhizhing believed that no one would be willing to invest so many gold coins to verify something with such a low probability of success. It was also because of this reason that Xue Zhizhing wanted to persuade Yuan Weiqing to give up this plan and choose a normal life. Thinking of this, Xue Zhizhing raised his head to look at Yuan Weiqing and said with a bitter smile, "Yuan Weiqing, I understand your situation and your feelings, but you have to think clearly. If you want to complete this plan, we have to pay too much. 5 million gold coins, brilliant saber skills, and most importantly, your talent. There are only 3 conditions, and none of them can be missing." Speaking of this, Xue Zhizhing paused for a moment, but then he didn't wait for Yuan Weiqing to answer him and continued. "Yuan Weiqing, think about it. Of these 3 conditions, which one do you have?" After hearing Xue Zhizhing's words, Yuan Weiqing was stunned for a moment. He frowned and thought for a moment, then raised his head to look at Xue Zhizhing and said slowly, Master Shui, I think I should have all three conditions. What? You have all of them? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Shui Zhizheng suddenly exclaimed and looked at Yuan Weiqing in disbelief, his voice trembling as he asked, Yuan Weiqing, could it be that you think you have all three conditions? After hearing Shui Zhizheng's question, Yuan Weiqing nodded and said slowly, Master Shui, think about it. The first condition, regarding the issue of gold coins, understand that this will require a lot of gold coins, maybe even 5 million gold coins. But as long as Tianhua agrees to our conditions, we don't have to worry about the gold coins at all. The second condition, brilliant saber skills. I think that as long as we have a large amount of gold coins, it shouldn't be a problem to obtain a brilliant saber skill. The third condition, which is the problem of talent that you mentioned, I think I also have this condition. Master Shui, although my martial arts aren't very high, don't forget that my master's martial arts aren't high either. If I have a brilliant saber skill, I can be sure that my achievements will definitely be higher. Master Shui, help me. I can definitely become the second one-armed saber king. At that time, I will rely on my martial arts to become the protector of the secret Thunder sect in the South region. No one will look down on me, and you don't have to worry about me anymore. Hearing Yuan Weiqing's reason, Shui Zhizheng could only smile bitterly and had no other thoughts. Yuan Weiqing's reason was simply ridiculous. Just like the first condition, as long as Tianhua agreed to their conditions, they didn't have to worry about the gold coins. But the problem was that Shui Zhizheng was sure that no matter who it was simply unrealistic to take out 6 million gold coins at once. The two sides have been entangled for so long because they encountered this problem. Tianhua couldn't take out 6 million gold coins, and they didn't want to let him go, so the matter was in a deadlock until now. If Tianhua could take out 6 million gold coins, this matter would have been solved long ago. Why would it wait until now? Therefore, the first solution that Yuan Weiqing mentioned was impossible, and the probability of it being realized was too small. There was also something wrong with the solution to the second condition. As long as Tianhua didn't agree to their conditions, even if they knew where to sell a high-level saber skill, did they have the gold coins to buy it? There was also the solution to the third condition that Yuan Weiqing mentioned, which made Shui Zhizheng feel that it was ridiculous. Yuan Weiqing said that his talent in martial arts was very high. The reason why his martial arts were not high was that his master did not teach him well, so his martial arts were not high. Chapter 715. Although Yuan Weiqing said so, Shui Zhizheng did not think so. After so many years of observation, Shui Zhizheng was sure that the reason why Yuan Weiqing's martial arts were not high was not because his master was not good, but because his own talent was not enough. Talent played a huge role in martial arts. In the pugilistic world, there were many people who relied on their own talent to surpass their masters in martial arts in a short period of time. There were not just one or two examples like this, but many. This was because everyone would choose someone with higher talent as their disciple. It was also for this reason that the disciple would often surpass the master in terms of martial arts. In any sect, each generation would be stronger than the previous. This was basically certain. The main reason for this was that each generation had a higher talent than the previous. Coupled with the master's meticulous training, in terms of martial arts, each generation would naturally be stronger than the previous. However, Shui Zhizheng knew that in terms of martial arts, Yuan Weiqing was definitely not his master's opponent. Yuan Weiqing had been practicing martial arts for so many years, but he hadn't made much progress. It wasn't that he wasn't willing to work hard, but that his talent was only so high. It was very difficult for him to improve to the next level. Shui Zhizheng had not only met Yuan Weiqing's master, but the two had also exchanged blows. However, Shui Zhizheng had lost. Shui Zhizheng was not Yuan Weiqing's master's opponent, but Shui Zhizheng was 100% sure that Yuan Weiqing was definitely not his opponent. It could even be said that even if there were two Yuan Weiqing, they would definitely not be his opponent. This fully showed that Yuan Weiqing's talent in martial arts was definitely not very high. It was because of this reason that Xue Zhizhen wanted to give up on the plan to let Yuan Weiqing stand up again. Yuan Weiqing's talent in martial arts was not high. Even if he invested a huge amount of gold coins to buy precious elixirs and brilliant saber techniques, his talent was not enough. Even if he spent so much money, he would definitely not be able to cultivate a second one-armed saber king. Perhaps the Yuan Weiqing who spent 5 or 6 million gold coins to cultivate, in the end, would only be a little higher than his previous martial arts. If that was the case, then what was the point of investing so much energy? Thinking of this, Xue Zhizhen smiled bitterly. He raised his head to look at Yuan Weiqing and said slowly, "Yuan Weiqing, do you really think that you have fulfilled all 3 conditions?" After hearing Xue Zhizhen's words, Yuan Weiqing was stunned and asked with some doubt, "Xue Zhizhen, do you think that I have not met these 3 conditions?" Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment, but he didn't wait for Xue Zhizhen's reply and continued to speak with a frown. Hall Master Xue, I've already said that those 3 conditions can be achieved as long as we work hard. Is there anything wrong with that? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Xue Zhizhen shook his head and sighed. Yuan Weiqing, the first condition, 5 million gold coins, is not a small amount. Do you really think that Tianhua will agree to our conditions? After hearing Xue Zhizhen's words, Yuan Weiqing sneered. Hall Master Xue, does Tianhua dare to disagree? Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment, but he didn't wait for Xue Zhizhen's reply. He snorted coldly and continued to speak. Hall Master Xue, if Tianhua dares to disagree, then we will definitely not let him leave. As long as we use the Thunderbolt pill, even if Tianhua has great abilities, he will definitely not be able to escape from our hands. As long as we capture Tianhua, I don't believe that he will dare to disagree with our conditions. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Xue Zhizhen could not help but frown. Yuan Weiqing, if we do this, I'm afraid it will cause a fight between our 2 gangs. At that time, once we fight with each other, the losses will not be just a few million gold coins. In terms of strength, our secret Thunder Sect of the South County is inferior to the Shadow Alliance of the South County. If we didn't have the Thunderbolt pill and other firearms to suppress them, I'm afraid we would have been wiped out by them long ago. If our 2 gangs fight, I think the one who will suffer will be our secret Thunder Sect of the South County. If something really happens, Yuan Weiqing, do you think it's worth it? After hearing Xue Zhizhen's words, Yuan Weiqing sneered and shook his head. Hall Master Xue, so you're worried about this problem. Let me tell you, this is not a problem. As long as we capture Tianhua and make him agree to our conditions, he will give us 6 million gold coins. When the time comes, you only need to use these 6 million gold coins to help me. When I master my martial arts and become the second one-armed saber king, with just the South County Shadow Alliance, I can take care of them alone. What's there to be afraid of? Hall Master Xue, don't worry. As long as I'm here, there will definitely be no problem. Looking at Yuan Weiqing's confident look, Xue Zhizhen was not confident at all. He had already thought it through. Even if there were a large number of gold coins to support Yuan Weiqing's cultivation, Xue Zhizhen was sure that Yuan Weiqing would at least have a 70 to 80% chance of failing. Of course, failure did not mean that he would be killed. It meant that his martial arts had not reached as high as imagined. Xue Zhizhen felt that if he invested 6 million gold coins in Yuan Weiqing, the result might be that Yuan Weiqing's martial arts would be similar to his in the end. If that was the case, Xue Zhizhen would not offend Tianhua and would not invest in Yuan Weiqing. Xue Zhizhen sighed. Yuan Weiqing, let's not talk about the first condition. Let's talk about the second condition, which is a brilliant saber technique. Do you think that with your current conditions, you can get a brilliant saber technique? Hearing Xue Zhizhen's question, Yuan Weiqing hurriedly waved his hand and said with a smile, Hall Master Xue, I think that as long as you and Vice Hall Master Zhang are here, a brilliant saber technique should not be difficult, right? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Xue Zhizhen could not help but frown. He smiled bitterly and said, Yuan Weiqing, how can this be? Vice Hall Master Zhang, and I are not saber experts. How can we teach you martial arts? At this point, Xue Zhijing's tone paused, but then he did not wait for Yuan Weiqing to answer him. He smiled bitterly and continued. Yuan Weiqing, if I want to cultivate to the level of the one-armed saber king, it is absolutely impossible to rely on the two of us. We need a better saber technique. After hearing Xue Zhijing's words, Yuan Weiqing waved his hand indifferently and said with a smile, Home Master Xue, it doesn't matter. In our south region, the sect with the best saber technique is, of course, the Godly Saber sect. Home Master Xue, as long as you and Vice Hall Master Zhang make a trip to the Godly Saber sect, I think that with your relationship, the Godly Saber sect will definitely give you face. At that time, won't the brilliant saber technique be in your hands? Hearing these words, Xue Zhijing's brows furrowed even tighter. He bitterly smiled and said, Yuan Weiqing, even if our relationship with the Godly Blade sect is very good, but the Godly Blade sect's supreme blade technique is the treasure of the sect. How could they pass it down to outsiders? At this point, Xue Zhijing's tone paused before he continued. This is like the firearms of the secret Thunder sect in the South region. If the people of the Godly Saber sect came here and wanted the secret method of making firearms from the Godly Saber sect, would we be able to give this secret method to them just because we have a good relationship? At this point, Xue Zhijing's tone paused. But then, without waiting for Xue Zhijing to answer his question, he sighed and continued. Yuan Weiqing, it's impossible. No matter how good the relationship between the Secret Thunder sect and the South region is, we will not pass the manufacturing method to them. The brilliant saber technique to the Godly Saber sect is no less important than the firearms to the Secret Thunder sect in the South region. Under such circumstances, unless we defeat the Godly Saber sect and snatch their saber technique, they will never pass it to us. Xue Zhijing turned his head to look at Yuan Weiqing and smiled bitterly. Yuan Weiqing, do you think that the Secret Thunder sect in the South region can defeat the Godly Saber sect? Hearing Xue Zhijing's words, Yuan Weiqing laughed coldly. Home Master Xue, as long as we prepare more Thunderbolt pills and bring all our men to launch a surprise attack on the Godly Saber sect, I believe that no matter how strong the Godly Saber sect is, they will not be our match. At that time, we just need to kill the sect master of the Godly Saber sect, and the saber technique of the Godly Saber sect will belong to us. Haha, Hulk Master Xue. As long as we destroy the Godly Saber sect, we will immediately become the #1 sect in the South region. At that time, I will be able to learn some brilliant martial arts. Hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Xue Zhijing was stunned. He never thought that the huge Godly Saber sect would be so weak in Yuan Weiqing's eyes. The firearms of the Secret Thunder sect in the South region were indeed powerful. However, to destroy the powerful Godly Saber sect with just these firearms was simply wishful thinking. No. Even in his dreams, he would not be able to dream of such a scene. Among all the sects in the South region, the strongest were undoubtedly the Sky Sword sect and the Godly Saber sect. In terms of strength, the Sky Sword sect was #1 and the Godly Saber sect was #2. However, everyone knew that the strength of these two sects was almost the same. The main reason why the Sky Sword sect was #1 was because of the competition between the sect master of the Sky Sword sect and the sect master of the Godly Saber sect. For so many years, the rankings between the two sects were sometimes the Sky Sword sect #1 and sometimes the Godly Saber sect #1. This also meant that the difference in strength between the two sects was very small. It could even be said that they were almost the same. Such a powerful sect was actually in existence that could be destroyed at any time in Yuan Weiqing's words. Xue Zhijing simply did not dare to imagine why Yuan Weiqing would think so. What reason did he have to think so? Xue Zhijing sighed and said slowly, Yuan Weiqing, with the strength of the Secret Thunder sect in the South region, it's almost impossible to destroy the Godly Saber sect. The Godly Saber sect's strength is unparalleled. Although the Secret Thunder sect in the South region is also very strong, compared to them, we are far inferior. At this point, Xue Zhijing's tone paused. However, he did not wait for Yuan Weiqing to answer him. He smiled bitterly and continued speaking. Yuan Weiqing, there's no need for us to destroy the Godly Saber sect. As long as the Godly Saber sect doesn't cause trouble for us, we'll be extremely happy. Your way of thinking is wrong. After hearing Xue Zhijing's words, Yuan Weiqing frowned. Hall Master Xue, what do you mean by this? Do you mean that we can't obtain the brilliant saber technique? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Xue Zhijing smiled and nodded. Yuan Weiqing, even among the disciples of the Godly Saber sect, I'm afraid that only a very small number of them can learn the most brilliant saber technique, let alone us outsiders. It's almost impossible for us to learn their brilliant saber technique. Yuan Weiqing, you'd better give up on this idea. Yuan Weiqing heard this and shook his head. Xue Zhijing, no, there must be a way. Otherwise, how could the one-armed saber king learn the most brilliant saber technique? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Xue Zhijing sighed. Yuan Weiqing, there's no way to compare. Don't you know the identity of the one-armed saber king? At this point, Xue Zhijing's tone paused, but immediately after, he didn't wait for Yuan Weiqing to answer his question and continued. Yuan Weiqing, the one-armed saber king, is the junior brother of the Godly Saber sect's leader. It's also because of this that he was able to learn the most brilliant saber technique of the Godly Saber sect and become the one-armed saber king. Yuan Weiqing, the one-armed saber king, is a member of the Godly Saber sect, so he was able to learn the most brilliant martial arts of the Godly Saber sect. But you're just an outsider. Think about it. Would they be able to pass on the most brilliant saber technique of the Godly Saber sect to you? After hearing this, Yuan Weiqing frowned. After a long while, he slowly said, Hall Master Xue, if that's the case, I'll also join the Godly Saber sect. What do you think? Xue Zhijing smiled bitterly and shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, even if you join the Godly Saber sect, do you think that they would pass on the most brilliant saber technique to you? That's impossible. You've just entered the sect and are only an ordinary disciple. Plus, you're already a cripple. Think about it. Would they pass on the most brilliant saber technique to a cripple? Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing finally sighed and said dejectedly, Is there really nothing we can do? Xue Zhijing smiled bitterly and nodded. The saber techniques of the Godly Saber sect are only learned by ordinary disciples. As for the most brilliant saber techniques, only a very small number of people know them. It's really impossible for us to obtain these saber techniques. After hearing Xue Zhijing's words, Yuan Weiqing's eyes suddenly lit up. He lowered his voice and said, Hall Master Xue, what do you think? If we capture one of their senior disciples and learn the most advanced saber technique from him, wouldn't this matter be solved? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's idea, Xue Zhijing shook his head again. Yuan Weiqing, that's impossible. Even if it's a senior disciple, he's indeed learned the most brilliant saber technique. But do you think he's able to learn the most brilliant saber technique? Chapter 716. Xue Zhijing didn't wait for Yuan Weiqing's reply and continued. Yuan Weiqing, let me tell you, even if it's a senior disciple of our sect, it's not easy for them to learn those advanced saber techniques. Even if some people were taught by their masters, most of them would not pass the entire set of high-level saber techniques to them. Those who can truly learn the entire set of high-level saber techniques are only the head disciples and some of the most senior disciples. Other than them, most of you only know one or two moves. Even if we catch them, we will definitely not be able to get the saber techniques we want. Yuan Weiqing, do you understand? After hearing Xue Zhijing's words, Yuan Weiqing frowned. Hall Master Xue, since those ordinary disciples do not know all the high-level saber techniques, we do not need to catch them. As long as we catch some of the most senior disciples, we should be able to get the saber techniques we want. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Xue Zhijing could not help but frown. Yuan Weiqing, do you think that it is easy for us to catch the most senior disciples of the Godly Saber sect? Yuan Weiqing was stunned for a moment. Then he smiled and said, Hall Master Xue, no matter how well they hide, as long as we want to catch them, we will definitely succeed. Xue Zhijing shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, although there's a possibility of success, aren't you afraid of being discovered by them? Shui Zhijing paused for a moment, but then he did not wait for Yuan Weiqing to reply and continued. Yuan Weiqing, if we dare to do that, I am sure that once the Godly Saber sect finds out, they will definitely not let us go. Yuan Weiqing, I believe you should be very clear about how powerful the Godly Saber sect is. If they find out that we have caught their disciples, I am afraid that it will immediately cause a fight between our two sections. At that time, I can tell you with certainty that the one who will lose will be our secret Thunder sect. Yuan Weiqing, do you want that to happen? After hearing Shui Zhijing's words, Yuan Weiqing was stunned for a moment. Then he shook his head. Home Master Shui, I believe that as long as we are careful, they will definitely not find out. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Shui Zhijing bitterly smiled and shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, this is impossible. Even if we did it secretly, with the enormous power of the Godly Knife sect, it would not take much effort to investigate this matter. Once they find out about this matter, they will definitely think of a way to take revenge. At that time, with the strength of our secret Thunder sect, it will be almost impossible to block the attack of the Godly Saber sect. Shui Zhijing paused for a moment, but he continued without waiting for Yuan Weiqing's reply. Yuan Weiqing, you should give up on this idea. It's impossible to capture their disciples. Yuan Weiqing frowned. Home Master Shui, we've only captured one of their disciples. They wouldn't go so far as to mobilize the entire sect to search for him, would they? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Shui Zhijing bitterly smiled and shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, if it's an ordinary disciple, the Godly Saber sect might not care. But don't forget that the disciples we've captured are all senior disciples of the Godly Saber sect. Even if one of them is missing, it will definitely attract their attention. At that time, do you think they will come to search for him? After hearing Shui Zhijing's words, Yuan Weiqing gritted his teeth. Home Master Shui, since we can't get those brilliant saber techniques like this, we can change our method. We can spend gold coins to buy them. I believe that as long as we have enough gold coins, they will definitely sell us the brilliant saber techniques. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Shui Zhijing shook his head again. Yuan Weiqing, this is impossible. Brilliant saber techniques are the foundation of a sect. How can they sell them to others? This is unrealistic. Yuan Weiqing, you should give up on this plan. When Yuan Weiqing heard this, he could not help but frown. Home Master Shui, if we do as you say, then wouldn't we have no chance of getting those brilliant saber techniques? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Shui Zhijing sighed. If there are no accidents, this is the only result. Yuan Weiqing turned his head to look at Shui Zhijing. Just as he was about to speak, his heart suddenly moved. He whispered, Home Master Shui, with your connections, it shouldn't be difficult for me to find some brilliant saber techniques, right? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Shui Zhijing bitterly smiled and shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, this is impossible. Even if I know the sect masters of some sects, what's the use? At this point, Shui Zhijing's tone paused for a moment, but then, without waiting for Yuan Weiqing to answer his words, he continued to speak. Yuan Weiqing, this is like someone coming to me to get the secret of our Southern County Secret Thunder Sect's firearms. Then tell me, even if our relationship is good, can I sell it to them? Yuan Weiqing, this is impossible. Even if they spend more gold coins, I can't sell this secret to them. If I sell this secret to them and they learn how to make firearms, what will happen to our Southern County Secret Thunder Sect in the future? This is the same principle. The Godly Saber sect relies on their brilliant saber techniques to shake the Jianghu. But if their saber techniques are learned by others, what will they rely on to shake the Jianghu? Yuan Weiqing, just like the one-armed saber king we just talked about, he has a special reason. If he wasn't the junior brother of the Godly Saber sect's sect master, do you think he could learn the most brilliant saber techniques and become the famous one-armed saber king? Yuan Weiqing, this is impossible. No matter how powerful the one-armed saber king is, if it doesn't have a brilliant saber technique, he still can't become the one-armed saber king. Don't you understand this principle? After hearing Shui Zhijing's words, Yuan Weiqing suddenly sighed. "Oh, Master Shui, is it impossible to obtain those brilliant saber techniques?" Shui Zhijing heard this and sighed. "Yuan Weiqing, I think it should be like this. It is simply impossible for us to obtain those brilliant saber techniques. In my opinion, you should give up on this plan." Hearing Shui Zhijing's words, Yuan Weiqing's expression suddenly became disappointed. "Oh, Master Shui, I am unwilling. If I don't persevere, then my life will be ruined. You have to help me. You have to help me." After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Shui Zhijing sighed. "Yuan Weiqing, it's not that I don't want to help you. If you want to become the second one-armed saber king, there are too many difficulties. The 3 conditions I mentioned, the first one is basically impossible to fulfill. The second one, in my opinion, is completely impossible to fulfill." Speaking up to here, Shui Zhijing's tone paused for a moment. But then, without waiting for Yuan Weiqing to answer his words, he continued speaking. "As for the third condition, in my opinion, it seems even more impossible." After hearing Shui Zhijing's words, Yuan Weiqing suddenly opened his eyes wide and asked doubtfully, "Oh, Master Shui, are you saying that my talent in martial arts is not enough?" Shui Zhijing nodded his head and said with a wry smile, "Yuan Weiqing, your martial arts are not good enough. This proves that your talent is not enough. With your current talent, it is simply impossible for you to become a character like the one-armed saber king. So, Yuan Weiqing, why don't you give up?" After hearing Shui Zhijing's words, Yuan Weiqing frowned and suddenly said loudly, "Oh, Master Shui, on what basis do you say that my talent is not enough? My martial arts are not high, but this does not prove that my talent is not enough." Speaking up to here, Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment before continuing, "Oh, Master Shui, the reason why my martial arts are not high is not because of my talent, but because I have not met a famous teacher. Oh, Master Shui, if I had a famous teacher, I believe that with my talent, I would definitely be able to cultivate to a higher level. You have to believe me, my talent is very high. I can really do it." After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Shui Zhijing sighed. "Yuan Weiqing, if your talent is really high, why haven't you made any progress after cultivating for so many years?" Hearing Shui Zhijing's question, Yuan Weiqing hurriedly said loudly, "Oh, Master Shui, this has nothing to do with my talent. The reason why my martial arts have not improved is that there are too many things in the secret thunder sect of the South region. I have no time to cultivate martial arts. It is also because of this that my martial arts have not improved much." Speaking up to here, Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment, but then he did not wait for Shui Zhijing to answer him, and continued speaking. "Oh, Master Shui, think about it. Before I joined the secret thunder sect of the South region, my martial arts had improved very quickly. Don't you know?" After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Shui Zhijing did not know what to say for a moment. Yuan Weiqing said that before he joined the secret thunder sect of the South region, his martial arts had improved very quickly. However, no matter how fast he had improved, his martial arts were still not high enough. This fully showed that Yuan Weiqing's talent in martial arts was not good, but he said that his talent in martial arts was very high. This made Shui Zhijing a little embarrassed. If he said that Yuan Weiqing's talent in martial arts was not enough, it might make him angry or ashamed. In short, Shui Zhijing did not want to see this result. Shui Zhijing frowned and thought for a moment, then slowly said, "Yuan Weiqing, if you want to reach the level of the one-armed saber king, your talent must be high enough. It can even be said that it is 1 in 10,000. Yuan Weiqing, although your talent is not bad, if you want to reach the level of 1 in 10,000, it seems that you're still very far away." Speaking up to here, Shui Zhijing paused for a moment, but then he did not wait for Yuan Weiqing to answer him, and continued speaking. "Therefore, Yuan Weiqing, I think that even if you continue to cultivate, I am afraid that you will not reach the level of the one-armed saber king. If so, my suggestion is that you really do not need to continue cultivating. Do you understand what I mean?" After hearing Shui Zhijing's words, Yuan Weiqing was not discouraged. He gritted his teeth and said, "Oh, Master Shui, although my talent is not as high as the one-armed saber king's, As long as I cultivate more diligently than him, I may be able to surpass him. Hall Master Shui, could it be that you do not believe me? Shui Zhijing shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, if you do not have super high talent, it is not easy to learn peerless martial arts. Speaking up to here, Shui Zhijing paused for a moment, then continued. Yuan Weiqing, this is like a master teaching two disciples, but the achievements of the two disciples are absolutely not the same. The person with high talent will naturally become the person with the highest martial arts. If the talent is not enough, no matter how hard he works, I am afraid that he will not be able to become an expert. Yuan Weiqing, this is the difference between having no talent. Yuan Weiqing shook his head. Hall Master Shui, I do not believe your words. I think that as long as I practice diligently, I will definitely be able to learn peerless martial arts. Hall Master Shui, please believe me, I will definitely be able to do this. Please give me this opportunity. As long as you help me this time, I will definitely repay you in the future. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Shui Zhijing did not know what to say for a moment. Shui Zhijing was certain that with Yuan Weiqing's talent in martial arts, it was definitely impossible for him to learn peerless martial arts and become a top expert. But the problem was that although he knew this, Yuan Weiqing was not clear about it. Or it could be said that he was also clear about this point, but he wanted to test it once to see if he could succeed in the end. Of course, it could also be that Yuan Weiqing did not want to be dispirited like this, and wanted to seize the last opportunity to fight for a better future for himself. If the investment was a little smaller, and the requirements were a little lower, Shui Zhijing would definitely help him without hesitation to fulfill his wish. However, this was not a simple help, but a huge help. If 5 million gold coins were to be piled up into a pile, it would probably drown Yuan Weiqing. If one did not have a good opportunity, it would be impossible to obtain a high-level saber technique. If it was so easy to obtain, Shui Zhijing would have already obtained 1 or 2 peerless secret manuals and practiced it himself. Even with Shui Zhijing's status, he could not obtain a secret manual, let alone Yuan Weiqing. The most important thing was the last one. Yuan Weiqing did not have any talent in martial arts. Or it could be said that his talent in martial arts was not high to begin with. Under this condition, it was almost impossible for him to learn peerless martial arts. Although he could consume large amounts of spiritual medicine to increase his strength, without talent in martial arts, it would still be impossible. This was because some high-level martial arts relied on the comprehension of talent to comprehend the highest level of martial arts. Without talent in martial arts, it proved that there was no way to comprehend the highest level of martial arts. Since he could not comprehend the highest level of martial arts, naturally, he could not practice the highest level saber technique. Yuan Weiqing did not have such a high talent in martial arts. Even if he consumed large amounts of spiritual medicine, but without a high level of comprehension, it would be impossible for him to learn the highest level of martial arts. This also meant that no matter how many spiritual medicine he consumed, it would only increase his strength, but not his martial arts. It was also because of this reason that Shui Zhijing did not want to support Yuan Weiqing in doing these useless things. This was because the gains did not make up for the losses. After spending so much, if he could not learn the highest level of martial arts, then wasting those resources would be too much of a waste. Therefore, Shui Zhijing did not intend to support Yuan Weiqing. Chapter 717. Thinking of this, Shui Zhijing sighed. He looked up at Yuan Weiqing and said slowly, Yuan Weiqing, what I mean is that you don't have enough talent and you spent too many gold coins. Plus, we don't have any good saber skills. Shui Zhijing paused for a moment before continuing. Yuan Weiqing, I think we should just forget about this. What do you think? After hearing Shui Zhijing's words, Yuan Weiqing was shocked. His eyes were full of unwillingness. After a while, he said in a hoarse voice, "Oh, Master Shui, do you really want to give up on me?" After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Shui Zhijing shook his head with a bitter smile. Yuan Weiqing, it's not that we want to give up on you. but this is really difficult to do. Plus, the possibility of success is too small. So I think it's better for us to leave so much money to help you do other things." Yuan Weiqing shook his head. Master Shui, I just want to practice my martial arts again. I really don't think about other things." Master Shui, for people like us who practice martial arts, if we lose our martial arts, you should know what it means, right? Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment before continuing. Master Shui, I hope you can help me this time. No matter what the result is, I want to try. If I really can't practice the peerless martial arts, I won't regret it in the future. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Shui Zhijing couldn't help but frown. Yuan Weiqing, don't you feel that the price we have to pay to do this is too high? After hearing Shui Zhijing's words, Yuan Weiqing hurriedly nodded. I know, but Master Shui, I still hope you can help me this time. If I don't try and give up like this, I really won't be willing. Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment, but then he didn't wait for Shui Zhijing to answer him and continued. Master Shui, if I can really practice the martial arts of the one-armed saber king, it will be of great benefit to our secret thunder sect. Master Shui, please help me this time. Although the cost is indeed a bit too high, I will definitely remember this favor of yours. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Shui Zhijing couldn't help but frown. To be honest, he also wanted to help Yuan Weiqing, but the price to pay was too great. It could even be said that he couldn't afford it. Thinking of this, Shui Zhijing sighed and slowly said, Yuan Weiqing, it's not that I don't want to help you, but it's too difficult to succeed. Shui Zhijing paused for a moment, but he continued without waiting for Yuan Weiqing's reply. Yuan Weiqing, think about it. Let's not talk about the other two conditions. Just the first condition alone is something we can't achieve. So even if we want to help you, I'm afraid there's nothing we can do. Hearing Shui Zhijing's words, Yuan Weiqing immediately shook his head. Master Shui, as long as we let Tianhua compensate us, won't the gold coin problem be solved? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Shui Zhijing smiled bitterly and shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, it's not as simple as you think. At this point, do you still think that Tianhua will agree to our conditions? Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing sneered. Master Shui, why wouldn't he? If Tianhua doesn't agree to our conditions, we won't let him leave. Let's see if he agrees or not. Shui Zhijing sighed. Yuan Weiqing, it's not that easy. Tianhua's martial arts are strong. If we want to keep him, it's between the two. We don't have full confidence. Speaking of this, Shui Zhijing paused for a moment before continuing. Moreover, if we insist on making a move, I'm afraid it will cause the Shadow Alliance of the South County to be dissatisfied. At that time, I'm afraid it will cause a fight between our two gangs. Yuan Weiqing sneered. Master Shui, that won't happen. As long as we capture Tianhua, no one will know about this. Why are you afraid of a fight between two gangs? Hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Shui Zhijing could not help but frown. Yuan Weiqing, if we make a move on Tianhua, it will definitely cause Tianhua to be dissatisfied. At that time, even if we want to explain, I'm afraid it will be useless. Yuan Weiqing sneered. Master Shui, you're worrying too much. As long as we have something on Tianhua, what can he do to us? At that time, we have something on him. He definitely won't dare to make a move on us. Hearing this, Shui Zhijing already knew that there was no point in continuing on this issue. Yuan Weiqing had already determined that as long as they captured Tianhua, the gold coin problem would be solved. However, was it really that simple? Shui Zhijing sighed. Yuan Weiqing, even if we capture Tianhua, what if he still doesn't agree to compensate us? What should we do? Don't agree? Hearing Shui Zhijing's words, Yuan Weiqing suddenly sneered. Master Shui, if he dares to not agree, then I don't mind using a little trick on him. I don't believe that under my tricks, he won't agree to my conditions. Hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Shui Zhijing could not help but frown. Yuan Weiqing, even if we capture Tianhua, isn't it a little inappropriate to use a trick on him? At this point, Shui Zhijing paused for a moment, but then he did not wait for Yuan Weiqing to answer him and continued. No matter what, Yi Tianhua is the boss of the South County Shadow Alliance. If we make a move on him, it's equivalent to challenging the South County Shadow Alliance. At that time, it won't be easy for us to clean up the mess. Yuan Weiqing shook his head. At this point, we only want him to agree to our conditions. If he doesn't agree, then we can only use a trick. As for the consequences, Hall Master Shui, is that important? Shui Zhijing could not help but frown. Yuan Weiqing, are you saying that in order to achieve these conditions, we have to do anything? Hearing Shui Zhijing's question, Yuan Weiqing suddenly sighed. Hall Master Shui, my arm was injured by him. If he doesn't agree to our conditions, I'm afraid I'll really be crippled by him. How can I forget this grudge? At this point, Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment before continuing. Hall Master Shui, if Yi Tianhua is willing to agree to my conditions, I can forget about this matter. But if he doesn't agree to my conditions, on account of him crippling me, I will definitely not let him off. If he dares to not agree to my conditions, don't blame me for using a trick on him. Shui Zhijing sighed. But what if he still doesn't agree? At this point, Shui Zhijing paused for a moment, but then he did not wait for Yuan Weiqing to answer him and continued. Yuan Weiqing, even if you cripple Yi Tianhua, he still won't agree to your conditions. Then what will you do? Hearing Shui Zhijing's words, Yuan Weiqing was stunned for a moment, but then he sneered. Hall Master Shui, don't worry. Under my tricks, Yi Tianhua will definitely not be able to survive. Even if he is made of iron, he will still agree. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Shui Zhijing could not help but feel a chill in his heart and couldn't help but shiver. Shui Zhijing forced a smile and said, Yuan Weiqing, let's not talk about this first. The second condition, how do you want to obtain the brilliant blade technique? Hearing this condition, Yuan Weiqing could not help but frown. He lowered his head and muttered to himself for a moment before slowly saying, Hall Master Shui, you can first use your status to make a trip to the Godly Blade sect. If they agree to use gold coins to buy it, then we can give them gold coins. If they have other conditions, we can also agree. In short, we must obtain the blade technique of the Godly Blade sect. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Shui Zhijing smiled bitterly and shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, we have already said that the Godly Blade sect will not give us the brilliant blade technique. Even if we take out more gold coins, they will definitely not agree. Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing clenched his teeth and said coldly, if they don't agree to use gold coins to buy it, then don't blame us for being rude. Hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Shui Zhijing was shocked and asked in a trembling voice, Yuan Weiqing, what do you want? Yuan Weiqing sneered, if they don't take out the brilliant blade technique, then we can only use other methods? Shui Zhijing composed himself and asked in a trembling voice, Yuan Weiqing, what method do you want to use? Yuan Weiqing clenched his teeth. If they don't agree to use gold coins to buy it, then we can only rob them. Rob? Hearing Yuan Weiqing's answer, Shui Zhijing was stunned for a moment. Then, he shook his head with a bitter smile. Yuan Weiqing, there are countless experts in the Godly Blade sect. If you want to rob the blade technique from the Godly Blade sect, not to mention us, even the sect master of the Sky Sword sect would not dare to do such a thing, right? Yuan Weiqing shook his head. Hall Master Shui, don't worry. We can't rob them openly. If we do that, not only will we not be able to get the brilliant blade technique, we might even be killed by them. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Shui Zhijing let out a long sigh of relief. He was really afraid that Yuan Weiqing would rush and recklessly and want to rob the Godly Blade sect's blade technique. Shui Zhijing was sure that even if he used all the people of the Secret Thunder sect in the South region to rob it, they would definitely not succeed. As one of the top sects in the South region, if it was so easy for someone to rob the most brilliant blade technique from the sect, then there was no need for the Godly Blade sect to exist. In fact, not to mention the Godly Blade sect, even if it was the Secret Thunder sect in the South region, Shui Zhijing dared to guarantee that if someone came to rob the secret of the sect, they would definitely not be able to do it. Moreover, Even if someone could really break into the secret Thunder sect in the South region, they might not necessarily be able to find the secret of the technique. Just like the Godly Blade sect's most brilliant blade technique, they would definitely not put it in an open place. They would definitely hide it, and they would hide it very well. If someone did not know the location, they would probably never be able to find it. Therefore, it was basically impossible to snatch a brilliant saber technique from someone else. Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment. Then, without waiting for Xue Zhijing to reply, he continued. Halt, Master Xue. When the time comes, we will all visit the sect master of the Godly Blade sect. When we see him, as long as we take action and subdue him, I believe that with our methods, we will definitely be able to make him tell us the location of the blade technique secret. When that time comes, won't we be able to easily obtain the blade technique secret? This, after listening to Yuan Weiqing's words, Xue Zhijing was so shocked that he was speechless. How could Yuan Weiqing think of capturing the sect master of the Godly Blade sect? Who was the sect master of the Godly Blade sect? His martial arts were one of the best in the South region. Even the one-armed Blade King was definitely not a match for the sect master of the Godly Blade sect. Yuan Weiqing actually said that he wanted to capture such a person. Xue Zhijing could only sigh in his heart. If the few of them wanted to fight with the sect master of the Godly Blade sect, Xue Zhijing guessed that they would be considered lucky if they could join forces and take a slash from the sect master of the Godly Blade sect. Most importantly, although he was the hall master of the secret Thunder sect in the South region, it was not easy to meet the sect master of the Godly Blade sect. Needless to say, when they met the sect master of the Godly Blade sect, they would take the opportunity to capture him. Xue Zhijing sighed. Yuan Weiqing, you don't have to think about this matter. We definitely can't do it. The sect master of the Godly Blade sect's martial arts have already entered the transformative realm. It is absolutely impossible for us to do anything to him. After hearing Xue Zhijing's words, Yuan Weiqing sneered. Hall Master Xue, the sect master of the Godly Blade sect's martial arts are indeed very high. I admit that. However, if we throw out hundreds of Thunderbolt pills at the same time, I believe that even the sect master of the Godly Blade sect may not be able to dodge them. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Xue Zhijing shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, this is just your imagination. Even if we throw out hundreds of Thunderbolt pills together, do you think that it will be enough to defeat the sect master of the Godly Blade sect? Xue Zhijing paused for a moment, but he didn't wait for Yuan Weiqing to answer him. Instead, he smiled bitterly and continued to speak. That's impossible. The sect master of the Godly Blade sect's martial arts are very high. I am certain that hundreds of Thunderbolt pills will only injure him at most. It is impossible to defeat him. Furthermore, if we dare to make a move against the sect leader of the Godly Blade sect, and if we fail to succeed in one strike, I believe that with the sect leader of the Godly Blade sect's martial arts, he will only need one move to injure us. At that time, wouldn't we be countered by him? After hearing this, Yuan Weiqing could not help but frown. He thought carefully before slowly saying, if hundreds of Thunderbolt pills are not enough, then we will use more. At this point, Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment before continuing, Hall Master Xue, if these Thunderbolt pills are not enough, then we can use our Thunderbolt bombs. I believe that under the attack of the Thunderbolt bombs, no matter how high the sect master of the Godly Blade sect's martial arts are, he will definitely not be able to escape. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.